me like war. It makes me pound it very hard.
Thank God it's Friday!
God!
All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk John Iadarola with you guys. I know you've heard this a million times, which I certainly have, but we are apparently on the precipice of either a peace deal or all-out war any second now, because as we're about to tell you, the Iranians say that they have agreed. We're waiting on Trump's word. The markets have closed. It's almost morning in Iran. So, we're about to apparently find out who runs this country. So that's coming up in a little bit. Also, speaking of people who run the country, we were told that Israel having influence, control over the media, outrageous. No. Pure as the driven snow. They would never dare do propaganda in America. We're going to show you receipts of overwhelming propaganda they do in America in order to influence us, to say the least. So you're going to get exact evidence of that. And then later in the show, on top of many other people, groups of people, but among individuals, I'm actually, I think my family was the only ones named. Nick Fuentes says I should be arrested. Why should I be arrested? I don't know. We're gonna find out later in the show, or maybe we're not. But a huge one. Anna went on Candace Owens' show. So we've got a lot of clips for you guys from that. That was a fascinating conversation about people changing their minds, why they changed their minds, and what do they think now. So hang in for that. All right, John.
Okay, let's jump into the news. This morning, Donald Trump announced that he would be making very soon a final determination, in his words, on peace negotiations with Iran, which means we've reached my favorite part of every Friday. We either have a deal or we're gonna kill a bunch of people in Iran. I can't wait to find out. I hope you've got your bets on Kalshi in and your investments into oil futures. So maybe we'll have peace, or maybe we'll have war. I don't know. It feels like an opportunity to manipulate the market in a variety of different ways. What's your prediction? Is this finally the time?
No way I'm making a prediction on this. This is the most unpredictable thing of my lifetime. So as we're gonna show you here, there is evidence that a deal is already in place, just needs Trump's sign off. Is that true? We're all gonna find out together. And then we're also gonna tell you how Israel's working overtime to destroy this deal. They hate it. So who's in charge of the country? Again, we're all gonna find out together.
Yeah.
So John, tell us what's happening.
Yeah, and let's also please bear in mind that they could stop the deal from being signed. They can also do all sorts of things after the deal is signed to start a new war. Remember, this is the second Iran war. We could go for 3. Anyway, here is what Trump says the agreement, the rough outlines of the agreement are. And Trump is saying it, so obviously you can take it to the bank. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Iran must end the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Iran cannot implement a toll system in the Strait. They will remove the underwater mines in the Strait, and they will collaborate with the US to remove any nuclear dust, his favorite phrase, from inside Iran. And if that's the entirety of the deal, then that sounds pretty good, right? That's pretty favorable from our point of view. I mean, basically all of that is what we had before the war for the most part, but at least we've gotten back to it, and it only took a few months and $50 to $100 billion in some American lives and a bunch of Iranian schoolgirls. So that's all good. But in return, what would Iran get? Well, what we're hearing, according to the New York Times, this was notably not in Donald Trump's Truth Social post, is there will be a $300 billion investment fund set up for Iran. So that's sort of, I guess, compensation, some might say reparations for this. 2 diplomats briefed on the latest draft called it an international investment fund, which the US would help facilitate in the event of a final deal. Plans for such a fund would be further discussed during the negotiations period. I really want to stress that in his Truth Social post, he said, no money will be exchanged until further notice, which seems to imply that money will be exchanged. And maybe from the point of view of Iran, this makes things okay, and it's good compensation for not having a nuke. And I buy that we might do this. When it comes to foreign countries, the US is happy to set up massive investment funds. It's only for domestic concerns that they have no interest in actually investing here. But anyway, this seems to be an iteration, a development of an earlier idea that Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner had apparently been working on. Both are real estate investors, and some mediators said they had suggested promoting real estate projects in Tehran and an investment fund in the event a deal was reached. And I have no doubt that if this happens, Trump's family will make tons of money off of it. That has to be a part of any news development. Now, Iranian officials say that they had proposed to American negotiators that US companies, including major oil and energy corporations, could enter Iran for investments and joint venture deals. So that's what we're hearing either from Trump directly or from diplomats talking with the American media. But what's the message coming out of Iran? Well, we've got that from a couple different sources. The first being Jeremy Scahill of Dropsite News. He says that an Iranian official said that from their perspective, there's a final draft of a memorandum of understanding with the US. But Iran at present has zero trust in Trump or the US and can't rule out a chance for more US-Israeli strikes. They say some voices on the Iranian side are concerned that President Trump may reconsider his position at the last minute. Trump needs to cultivate the image of a victor in the war. We cannot regard President Trump's decision as definitively finalized until the financial markets close at the end of the week. I don't know why exactly they would consider it finalized at that point, but I get their concern, Cenk. Very often when Trump says we're this close to a deal, they are gassing up the jets to start bombing once again. Maybe that's not what will happen in this particular time. But this isn't the only source of disagreement. The Fars news agency responded to some of the points in Trump's post and said, Trump claimed Iran must open the strait with no tolls. The sources say no such clause exists in the memorandum of understanding text. Iran has said it will open the strait after the blockade is lifted on its own predetermined terms, which may include vessel monitoring, inspection, and security services, meaning tolls. And Trump claimed Iran will dismantle or destroy its nuclear material. They say that that has no basis whatsoever and does not appear in the memorandum of understanding. And so if you take the deal as Trump says it, Cenk, and then you compare it to that deal, but we don't get the nuclear material and they do set up tolls in perpetuity, that's not as good of a deal.
Yeah, so okay, let's break it down one by one. So the essence of the first stage of the deal is they open up the Strait of Hormuz. We slowly lift the blockade that we have, but that's after, as we verify that they've taken out the landmines and ships can come through. So far that makes perfect sense. We get what we want, they get what they want in terms of the blockade in the strait. Secondly, when it comes to the enriched uranium and the nuclear program altogether, what Iran is saying is in the first stage, they're basically making a promise that we will not have a nuclear weapons program. Good news, they've made that promise like 8 times and have kept to it. They never violated it. They never had a nuclear weapons program. They never had a nuclear weapon. They never had a missile to deliver that weapon, okay? So, but good, I'm happy to have yet another announcement that they are not going to make a nuclear bomb and verification that goes along with it, okay? Which we had under the Obama deal, but great, no problem, right? Be thrilled to go back into the Obama deal, and I think the whole country should be. Okay, so now then we have to give them some sort of financial compensation. Now, if you say, why do we have to do that? We get to kill anyone we like and bomb any country and invade them for no reason. Yeah, okay, well, you can claim that and you might even believe it, but it doesn't really matter what you believe. It matters what the outcome was. And the outcome was we could not open up the Strait of Hormuz. If we can't open up the Strait of Hormuz, gas is gonna go higher, and that's gonna affect inflation, and it's gonna crash the economy. And almost every economist in the world agrees. So we don't have a choice. I think we're getting off easy, honestly. So then the question becomes, what kind of financial remuneration is Iran going to get? And what does it mean to end their nuclear enrichment program? So that kind of gets us into stage 2, where Iran says, okay, we're going to give you assurances and the actual materials, enriched uranium itself, in the second stage. And as we do that, you're going to lift all your sanctions, which is one form of getting their money back. But remember, and Trump keeps saying in all his announcements, there'll be no cash. Okay, it doesn't have to be cash. No one cares that it's cash, right? So that's kind of like a loophole. And there's another loophole in the Strait of Hormuz conversation. That is, Trump says there'll be no toll. Well, it depends on what you call a toll, right? So if they say, I am charging a toll, $2 million per ship, okay, that probably is not gonna fly because it's too embarrassing. But if they say we're doing a maintenance fee, us and Oman for the Gulf, and we're working in coordination with the rest of the world on that maintenance fee, that maybe that could fly, right? But there's a lot of different ways to do this. The $300 billion, what is that? Are we giving them $300 billion? No, our domestic audience would not stand for that, and it would be way too embarrassing for Donald Trump. So we've gotten the suckers at the table, the Gulf countries, to largely say that they will put in the money. Why? They were the ones who got attacked for no reason because of their, well, to be fair, they made a really stupid alliance with Israel, right? United Arab Emirates. Like Qatar and the others didn't necessarily, the Saudis and UAE, you wanted to be friends and allies with Israel, they always make you pay for it, right? So, okay, and I don't have a lot of sympathy for UAE in particular. So whatever they pay is their business, not my business. But could others chip in some different ways and call it redevelopment and an investment? Sure. But look, guys, the essence of the deal is pretty easy and not bad, which is Iran gets its sanctions lifted, gets some of its money back, some of the money back for all the things we destroyed in Iran, right? And we get the nuclear enrichment material back, and they have no nuclear weapons program. The Strait is open, the blockade's over. That's a gorgeous deal. That's the deal we want. That's the deal the Iranians want. That's the deal that the entire planet wants. The only people who don't want that deal are the Israelis. I've got more on that in a second. But John, you see how, I don't see the downside of this deal at all.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, zooming out, the downside would be the stupid, pointless war that gets us back to largely the status quo we had before it. Or if you go back a little bit further to the JCPOA.
Of course. And so that's why we hated the idea of this war. We hated the idea of getting out of the JCPOA. And we were against it all along. But we are where we are today.
Sure.
And in order to get out of this mess, what I'm trying to impress upon you guys is that the deal's actually relatively simple because Iran never had a nuclear weapons program. Yeah. And then they enriched the uranium just to have leverage because the Israelis were like, we're gonna kill you. We're gonna demolish your regime and kill everyone in your government. They're like, I don't know, maybe we should enrich uranium to have some leverage. But they had a fatwa against a nuclear weapons program. So they don't really miss anything by giving that away and opening up the Strait of Hormuz because it used to be open, right? And we don't lose anything because we never had any interest in Iran in the first place.
Yeah, the Iranians had this insane belief that at some point the US and Israel would attack them, and they thought they needed a deterrent. I don't know why they thought that. That would never ever happen twice in a 1 year span. Now let's bear in mind that coming out of it, there are a few other elements. So first of all, the FARS agency also adds we're gonna unfreeze $12 billion. It's literally the exact same thing that Obama did, that Donald Trump has been whining about this entire time. Let's just be clear. Go on Donald Trump's True Social post right now, and you will see memes in response to everything he puts out that he gives the Iranians missiles and Obama gave them cash. And just bear in mind, we're gonna give them cash. Let's just be clear about that.
Can I just real quick on that? Look,
it's their money.
Look. It's super dumb, but this is not the time to rub it in.
Sure.
Get him to sign the deal. Yes. And then we'll worry in years from now, oh, hey, it was the same thing as the Obama deal. I don't care, just get the piece.
I want it to be the same thing. I'm not trying to rub it in. But let's also be clear, they say, first of all, and they say until that's paid, they're not gonna proceed to any other phase, so we're gonna have to provide that. And then a full ceasefire in Lebanon. So that's a prerequisite.
Well,
and that is now where, oh, well, we don't have full control over that. And so if some other party wanted to torpedo this thing, they can always start raining hell on Lebanon in theory.
And of course, they hit Lebanon 75 times yesterday.
Yeah.
So now let's break that down because it's the most important part of this entire equation. Because if Israel wasn't in the equation, we never would have gone to war in the first place. We never would have gotten out of the Obama deal in the first place. The only reason that they wanted to get out of the Obama deal was because to have an excuse to attack Iran and to do regime change. Guys, I don't know if you know this, the New York Times reported this last week. This is amazing. It turns out Ahmadinejad, the crazy Iranian leader from 2005 to 2013, was an Israeli agent. Oh my God, okay? So I have never been more stunned by that. And God, the Israelis are amazing. So we don't know how long he's been an Israeli agent, but he was under house arrest before the war began. His chief of staff had been arrested for being an Israeli agent back in 2018. And so Israel did a bombing of the people that were guarding him right in the beginning of the war. They kill the Ayatollah. They killed the guards of Ahmadinejad, who were not his guards, but the guards that were basically imprisoning him in his own house. But the idiots accidentally hit Ahmadinejad. Because why did they not want to hit Ahmadinejad? Why did they want to free him? They were going to put him in charge of the country. So that means 100% Israeli agent. Now look back at what he did when he was in charge. Oh, the Israel shouldn't exist. The Zionism should end. The Holocaust wasn't real. We're going to build nukes. Oh, all of those were excuses for Israel to attack Iran. God, they're brilliant. Okay, so we wouldn't have had any of these issues if Israel wasn't in the equation to begin with. They've been agitating for this war, as you all know. Now you've seen Netanyahu 30 years on tape. Iran's 2 weeks away from a nuke. Oh, they're gonna kill your grandmother. It's a ticking time bomb. Literally 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, etc. So this guy's one of the biggest liars in human history. And he's been lying about how dangerous Iran is the entire time. And they've had 1 million assets inside Iran, as they do here. So now rubber meets the road right now, right here on this issue. You've got all that history and context. Now, the most important thing is what's going to happen. Because the pivotal part of this entire agreement isn't the nuclear dust, the enriched uranium, the sanctions, even the Strait of Hormuz. No, the critical part is Iran says, no, the whole war has to stop. The entire Middle Eastern war has to stop. Israel cannot keep attacking us. They cannot keep attacking our allies, including Lebanon. They cannot take southern Lebanon. And Israel says, oh, hell no, we're never gonna stop. We're always gonna be at war. We're always gonna come to take your land. We're not gonna stop for 1 second in Lebanon. In fact, Netanyahu put out a video after the first announcement of peace any second now earlier in the week. And he said, we're gonna put the pedal to the metal and we're gonna go even deeper into Lebanon and our war is not over, right? Because he's a disgusting warmonger and one of the most evil people on the planet. So he has signaled in 1,000 ways, including all of their assets here, like Mark Levin and others going, no, war. Okay, so all those have been triggered. They're all trying to destroy this peace deal before it's signed. God knows what other threats they have. So then the question is, are we going to listen to them or not? The whole country agrees we should end this war. The whole world agrees we should end this war. The markets agree. Everyone. By the way, other rich people, almost all the other rich people agree. End the war. Are you crazy? The markets are about 50,000, as Pam Bondi would say. And AI is killing it. And the last thing we want is this ridiculous curveball where you do an RPG through an entire global economy with inflation that's totally out of control because of gas prices. Okay, so. Israel's power versus the rest of the world, I've got it at 50-50. And by the way, historically, up until this moment, it has not been 50-50. Israel has gotten its way every single time. Israel got its way when we first attacked Iran, the second time we attacked Iran, anytime we tried to stop attacking Iran, Israel's assets, oh no, war, we're not done yet, we need more blood, right? And everyone's like, okay, sorry, we didn't mean to be anti-Semitic, we'll kill more Muslims, okay, and Christians. Okay, so that's literally how it's played out. You've all seen it with your own eyes, right? So now the question is, now that it appears that we're at the last stage of this, does Israel control us 100%? That's the question. It's not whether they have influence. They have massive influence, otherwise we wouldn't have gotten the war in the first place. It's not whether they control us, and can I use the word control? Of course, when you drive us into a war and keep us in that war for all this time, when we have no interest in it, of course you control us. Now the question isn't that. The question is the control 100%? Because going further when the entire planet says no, would mean that's it. No, They literally stronger than the rest of the world combined, rest of humanity combined, rest of America combined. They completely have the American government and, by the way, American media under their control. Now, by the way, if we don't and Trump signs a peace deal, that means they don't have 100% control. You have to be honest in both directions. It doesn't mean that they don't have massive influence and that their control might not be 80% or whatever the number you want to put on it, but it certainly wouldn't be 100% if we defy them and do this peace deal, because they definitely do not want this peace deal.
Yeah.
So our job is to report the news, and whenever we have an answer on this, we'll tell you, was it 100% or wasn't it? Now, of course, we'll concede that it wasn't 100% if we defy them here. The other side will never concede that it's even 1%.
Yeah.
And by the other side, I don't mean Levin and the assets. I mean all of mainstream media. They're like, no, Israel has no influence. I mean, maybe a tiny amount. But if you say anything more than a tiny amount, you're a vicious anti-Semite. And the real problem isn't the wars and the genocide. It's you for not liking wars and genocide. You dirty, dirty bigot. Kill more Muslims, says Jake Tapper and every cable news anchor. Anyway, yes.
I think I'd like to offer you the opportunity to apologize for implying it's even 1%. You should apologize right there.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. We don't get to go through the timeline. That was going to be fun. Unfortunately, we probably don't have time. So we'll have to see. You know, it's a Friday. You never know what's going to happen before Monday's show. So stay tuned to find out as we play another round of Deal or War. Anyway, we're going to go to a break. We have a lot more after this.
So let's go to our members on TYT.com here. Navinik says, if it's the right kind of blackmail, why do the Israelis have to work overtime to kill the deal? That's why I think it's got to be more than blackmail, like unbelievable amount of kickbacks to Trump. Look, that's the part that's very, very hard to know. But like, if Trump cared about his administration, his term, his legacy, his popularity, which he most certainly cares about, he would have ended this war months ago, right? But he's been burning through his reputation and legacy the entire time. So it can't just be that Donald Trump is a moron and Netanyahu bewitched him, right? But if it's blackmail, then you're right, and I've said this a couple of times, why are we even having this fake debate, right? The blackmail's gonna win, it's won every time. So that's why we're gonna find out, does Israel 100% control us? Do they have blackmail on all of our politicians that they use because they're super evil to totally manipulate us? And then you would know that they're not just not an ally, they're definitely our enemy. And I think that's the case, but we don't know yet. So we're gonna find out. I mean, I think Israel's been our enemy throughout. They stole our nuclear technology, they stole nuclear triggers, they stole our uranium, they've stolen $320 billion by bribing our politicians. They've gotten us into 7 wars, gotten tens of thousands of Americans killed. If that's not an enemy, I don't know what is. We'll be. Back on the online news show, The Young Turks, Cenk, John Iderlo with you guys, and also Brahman83. Thank you for for sending 5 Young Turks gift memberships on YouTube. You're awesome for doing that. And look at these wonderful people who signed up through tyt.com/join. Google Cats, Eden, Colorado, Fuzzy Dragon 420, Teme at 1749, and Leafy Meadows. You guys are all wonderful, really appreciate it. You get a couple of months off of annual membership when you sign up through tyt.com/join. And you also get the TYT member stream, which has me reading your comments and your super chats during the commercial break. So a great reason to join that way. All right, John, what's next?
Okay, let's jump into this. Bombshell reporting from the Intercept details explicit and varied complex ties between a network of right-wing media groups and the Israeli government. Cenk, I'm sure you're shocked and also chagrined about this.
Yeah, but you guys got to watch this story because we're going to show you evidence here, indisputable evidence that Israel buys a lot of our media. And I don't mean all the purchases of TikTok, CBS, et cetera. You're gonna see how they influence and literally pay media figures and technology in this country to manipulate you into being in favor of Israel. And by the way, at great expense to us, wars, money we send over to them, et cetera. So I would argue you're gonna find out how they rob you. Yeah. So let's find out.
Yeah, and these numbers that they're shelling out to influence Americans is a lot of money, okay? It's gonna be pretty overwhelming for you to even just hear about. But understanding how much they get from the US taxpayer in return, it's actually an amazing return on investment.
Totally.
So most of this involves Brad Parscale, former Trump campaign manager. He was paid by Israel to propagandize on behalf of the country on major media channels and paid very well to do it and to pay other people to do it. So while serving as an executive at the Christian media company Salem Media Group, he funneled $13 million from Israel to an entire network of allies and digital strategy firms and contractors and companies and all of that, per an unreported document filed under the Foreign Agents Registration Act. So the document shows that he directed over $500,000 for ads, just for ads, to Salem Media representatives. So that's a subsidiary of Salem Media. Although he was hired to integrate pro-Israel messaging into Salem Media shows. So that includes people like Hugh Hewitt, Larry Elder, Scott Jennings. Can't wait for him to face some tough questions from Adam Mockler, their next meeting on CNN. These payments to the conservative media conglomerate on behalf of Israel were not previously known, but there's a lot of other companies that get involved and a lot of other sums of money being thrown around. So Israel initially directly hired Parscale's firm, Clock Tower X, this is last September, with a contract worth $6 million. The new filing reveals that his firm has received over $15 million from Havas Media Network, an international media company, again, also on behalf of the Israeli state. Parscale directed another $6 million of Israeli funds to Sparkfire Technologies, an AI chatbot company. That's fun. I'm sure the kids will enjoy those conversations. 3Tech, a software development company founded in 2024, is connected to a constellation of interwoven firms run by Parscale in Ohio and Texas that have been paid with Israeli government money as well. And in fact, 3Tech is listed as a certified partner of a marketing firm that shares Clock Tower X's Medina, Ohio address, along with another Parscale company receiving Israeli money as part of this deal. That's the AI company Eyes Over. And you know that it's a complicated mess when there's multiple media companies all tied to the same guy getting money. There's literally multiple AI companies all tied to the same guy getting money from the same company. The guy apparently just spends all day spooling up companies to get funded directly from the Israeli government. But that isn't even the end of it. We could jump into more, Cenk, but these are very large sums of money being thrown around seemingly quite casually.
So if you were wondering, why does our media seem so weirdly pro-Israel? Like no matter what Israel does, they're like, oh, they're the victims. You're like, wait, they just bragged on tape, this happened yesterday, that they went from having 53% of Gaza to Netanyahu said, now we have over 60% and we're gonna go to 70%. And then somebody from the audience said, how about 100%? And he said, we're gonna get there over time. Okay, so the Israeli government has voted to never free the Palestinians, keep them as I guess their slaves or whatever, but permanently occupied. They're never to have their own country, they're never to have freedom. And now Netanyahu has declared, yeah, we're gonna take all of Gaza, which shows the lie that it was about self-defense or the hostages. The hostages have been returned for a long time. And there was a ceasefire, there is a ceasefire right now theoretically. Doesn't matter, Israel has murdered 900 Palestinians in Gaza anyway, they never listened to a ceasefire. Now all these things are super obvious, yet our media almost never reports any of that. If you go watch cable news at any time, if you turn it on right now and you went to Fox News, CNN, or MS Now, they would all be telling you how Israel's the victims and they're only doing self-defense and these monstrous, horrible Muslims that keep attacking poor little Israel. And if you wondered, that's so crazy, why is our media so weirdly biased? And wait, the Palestinians are the bad guys, but they're the ones who are occupied. And the Israelis are the good guys, but they're the ones who are in charge and who've been brutally occupying the Palestinians for 58 years. Why has our media been lying to us our whole lives? And besides which, look, you don't have to trust me, you can look at a map. Israel keeps growing and growing and growing while pretending to do self-defense. So, okay, now you know, Israel literally buys our media. Now you think that a company like Salem's gonna be like, oh yeah, $15 million dispersed in different ways to Salem and their executives and their hosts, etc., is not interesting to them? Well, we know it is because they took it, right? There's no question. And so they take a tremendous amount of money from a foreign government to do the propaganda of that government and to purposely deceive you, their listeners and their viewers and their readers. They take money to manipulate you, I would argue, to betray this country and to serve another country. And the reason I say betray is they've taken $320 billion off of us. Our media brainwashed us into thinking that was normal. That's not at all normal. And it's not like they needed it to fight AIDS or malaria or some worthy cause. No, they wanted it to kill Palestinians. And we did, Biden's number one lifetime donor is the Israeli lobby. Why come the media never told you that? How come the media never tells you the number one donor to a lifetime donor to Trump and Mike Johnson and Schumer and Jeffries and to 90 is Israel 94% of our Congress bought off by Israel, but your media never tells you because your media is also bought off.
Yeah,
they literally purchased everyone who's in power. I don't mean literally because I'm sure, of course, there are hosts and stuff, maybe even at Salem, but I doubt it, that are not necessarily getting exact checks from the government of Israel. So I don't mean literally everyone, but you can see how vast their network is and how much it has affected almost all of our media. So Salem is a local TV and radio. So if you're watching in Cleveland or you're listening in the middle of Missouri, you have no idea that you're not getting actual news. You're getting propaganda bought by the government of Israel so that you will then agree to giving them hundreds of billions more and fighting more wars for them. And honestly, some of your kids died in Iran and Iraq, right?
Yeah.
A lot of American kids died in Iraq. And it turns out that was for Israel. There were no weapons of mass destruction. We got the fake intelligence from Israel. There was no nothing. We've just been systematically eliminating Israel's opponents. They've attacked 7 of their neighbors. And what's interesting is they call this propaganda the 8th front. I don't know if that's a reference to the fact that they wanted us to attack 7 of their neighbors, and we did. And the 8th front is who? It's us.
Yeah.
We're the 8th front. They have to manipulate and lie to us to get us to fund and fight their wars and their genocides.
Yeah. These investments are bombs. Buying TikTok is a weapon of mass destruction. Like that's how you fight that war. And it's bizarre that any of this is legal. I mean, simultaneously, it's not bizarre at all. Again, as Cenk pointed out, they've bought all the politicians. That's why it's legal to do this sort of thing. And yeah, I have no idea if the individual commentators get checks or even necessarily know about the payments. But I do know this. If you're like this media company and you've been handed $15 million and one of your hosts starts going hard against Israel's military strategy, that's gonna be it for that show. You're not gonna like, well, we want the $15 million, but we really like Larry Elder. Like I have a feeling they're probably gonna go with the money on that.
Well, not only that, I mean, in another instance, you got Ben Shapiro obviously running a giant propaganda outfit for Israel, and we have a test case. Candace Owens went against Israel, and she was immediately eliminated. So, and guys, if you think it's just Salem or just Daily Wire, are you crazy? In mainstream media, for my entire life, if you said anything that they viewed out of bounds about Israel, which they thought anything critical of Israel was out of bounds, you would be eliminated. This story is not about that. We've covered this in other stories, but there's also a network of brown shirts in this country that work for Israel. And the minute that you criticize Israel anywhere in media, they spring into action. Even in social media, even to average Americans now, we've also reported on that, getting people fired from their jobs, from like regular jobs, accounting job, doctors, teachers, like that. And guess what? Our media never reports on the Israeli network in this country that tries to get anyone criticizing Israel fired. And in media, that's not a maybe. If you criticize Israel, they will definitely target you and they will definitely try to get you fired. And if you work in mainstream media, they will succeed 100% of the time.
Yeah. Well, I know that we want to get to this next story. I just want to briefly mention that the diplomacy budget, Netanyahu apparently increased from 150 million to 750 million. So they can take over a whole bunch of digital strategy and AI companies with that.
Yeah, well, let me really quick build on that. So that's 730 actually million, to be fair. I covered a story from Naftali Bennett, the guy who's now leading in the next election in Israel, is just as right wing as Netanyahu, just as monstrous. So like, oh, we got rid of Netanyahu. If that happens, oh, it's all solved. No, Bennett's talking about invading a NATO country. They've lost their minds over in Israel. Anyways, he put out, and part of them losing their minds is they're now admitting things publicly. He's like, we have a terrific Hezbollah plan for America and the world, and we're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars in influencing Americans in the West to do what we say. You just admitted it, dude. You just like literally said. Well, then is Naftali Bennett an anti-Semite? Is Netanyahu an anti-Semite for saying we're going to spend $730 million to influence and manipulate the West?
They're playing into tropes, I think.
I mean, so do you see what I'm saying? Look, the tropes. I grew up believing the tropes were real in the sense of like, those are really terrible things to say and you should never say them. And it's like totally false and outrageous. No. The tropes are political booby traps. It's part of Israeli propaganda. Now, if you're Jewish out there and you were taught that the tropes are real and oh my God, anybody who says anything that resembles a trope is an anti-Semite, I get it. I was brainwashed as a Turk into believing the Armenian genocide didn't happen and that the Turks were right about everything. We all get brainwashed by our different ethnic group. The only question is how much. And for people who support Israel, the brainwashing is 2 billion%. Israel's hated by everyone. Everyone hates the Jews. They're gonna kill you all. They're gonna kill you. You gotta attack first. You gotta protect yourself. You have to wipe out the anti-Semites. If you don't wipe out the anti-Semites, they're gonna kill you all. So massive brainwashing to get you to believe that the tropes are real and you have to watch out for the tropes, right? But what's a trope? Oh, the trope is Jews control the media. Now, that's not remotely true because there's tons of Jews that are for peace. 63% of Jewish Americans are against the Netanyahu government, etc. But does Israel, you see the switcheroo they do, Jews, Israel? No, Israel is a government. It doesn't represent all Jewish people. Governments do terrible things all the time. Our government does terrible things all the time. And so they say, no, because it's a Jewish state, you're never allowed to criticize it, all the troops apply to it, etc., etc. It's a trick, it's a political booby trap. And so Israel knows that and they go, oh great, we'll hide behind the tropes. Since you can't say that Jews control the media, we will say we are going to try to control the media. We're gonna spend $730 million to control your media. We're gonna pay off all your hosts. We're gonna buy TikTok, we're gonna buy CBS, we're gonna CNN, but you're not allowed to say it. Netanyahu's allowed to say it, Naftali Bennett's allowed to say it, but you're not allowed to say the thing that we just told you we're doing.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Ben Gvir and Smotrich are like, oh yeah, we're gonna ethnically cleanse southern Lebanon. We're gonna take all of that land, we're gonna take all of Gaza, and you go, well, it looks like you're doing a genocide. They're like, blood libel, it's a trope. No, it's a giant lie by the Israelis to manipulate you into believing that you're not allowed to criticize them, even though you're not an Israeli. You're an American. You're allowed to criticize America. Why wouldn't you be allowed to criticize Israel?
Yeah.
So look, and they've literally arrested people in this country. They've taken away government contracts if you oppose Israel. The amount of oppression that Israel does in America is unbearable.
Yeah.
And now you know definitively they are trying to manipulate you into taking your money and your military and use it for their benefit, and they're paying off mainstream media to do it. And if that doesn't work, they come to eliminate you. And so, no, I'm not interested in being quiet about a bunch of thugs in this country, a terrorist network terrorizing all Americans and especially people in media and people in the government. You're not allowed to defy Israel. Well, then kiss my American ass. I will defy Israel. I know you'll try to destroy us. You're already trying to destroy us. So, well, game on. We'll fight you back as Americans. You come in here as Israelis and know who the Israelis are. When Scott Jennings tells you on TV 24/7, he doesn't just kiss Israel's ass. I mean, Trump's ass. He is up Israel's ass. Every time Israel's mentioned on CNN, that Scott Jennings says, "How dare you? All the Muslims are terrorists, and Israel is our beloved ally." Why? Because that bitch got paid to say that. He's deeply corrupt, and he's an Israel. In my opinion, anyone who took money from these guys are literal Israeli assets.
Register.
They should all register. By the way, Pascal and the others, the two main leaders, have registered as foreign agents.
Yeah.
They are literally foreign agents of a different country. Super last thing. Any country, it doesn't matter if it's Belgium or Brazil. If Brazil was like, we are now going to spend $700 million manipulating Americans so that they will give us hundreds of billions of dollars, and then they will attack Venezuela, Cuba, although we could throw those in gratis, right? But Colombia, Peru, Bolivia on our behalf, and if you don't, you're anti-Brazilian, and we're gonna destroy your career. If you say you're pro-Brazil and you're pro our wars, I'm pro our genocide, then we're gonna give you a lot of millions of dollars. If you say you're not, we're gonna destroy you. Well, I would be super pissed about Brazil doing that. And it's not because I'm anti-Brazilian, right? So, but they say this propaganda because they literally bought that propaganda. So they can get you to believe that anyone who criticizes Israel hates Jews or is anti-Semitic. That is a giant lie and part of how they manipulate you.
Well, we're gonna take our last break of the hour, but when we come back, Cenk might be going to jail soon, so we should probably talk about it.
All right, GOP paddle canoe says Trump could always take out blackmailer Bibi and blame anyone. Well, that would be a very Israeli thing to do, but I'm against that. I'm against violence, and besides which, what difference does it make? Netanyahu would be replaced by Gavir or Smotrich or Bennett. They've all lost their minds. They're all fascists. Panic on Funkatron says Cenk would destroy Fuentes in a debate. I bet Fuentes is too cowardly to confront Cenk directly, though. Thank you, but at this point, I don't care to debate him. As you're gonna find out in a second, he's not that interesting anymore. Uriah Heap says, I hear match factories are lighting up to meet the deal once and for all. Jack Callahan says, we have no credibility to demand any of this. Iran has all the cards, we lost. Pessimistic Progressive says, Cenk, you should have Adam Hamawi on for New Jersey 12 before the primary on Tuesday. He's being attacked by Gottheimer. All right, so if he's being attacked by Gottheimer, that must mean he's a really, really good person. Adam Hamawi, make sure you vote for him in New Jersey 12. I've got 2 candidates coming up because Tuesday elections in California too tonight. So don't go anywhere. I got 2 candidates for you guys after the show. YouTube members, Johnny Gum says Peter Thiel has moved to Argentina, and I found out earlier that Eric Weinstein has gone to Argentina as well. What's actually going on here? Well, I don't know, but Argentina better be careful. By the way, there's a super weird stories about how Israelis go to Argentina and burn down giant areas of land, and by accident.
Cenk, wealthy Muslim.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and John with you guys. I just want to real quick read you guys the polls that I was supposed to tell you in the last segment. So we have a poll on TYT.com plus on YouTube community. Israel hires media consulting firm in the US to influence Americans into supporting and funding Israel. Should TYT do media consulting on behalf of Americans to end the US funding of Israel? So far, or at least before the show began, there was 1,500 votes. And it was 94-6. Yeah, do media consulting to defund Israel. We will definitely take that under advisement. And now let me just quickly tell you our poll from yesterday that had 13,000 votes on YouTube community. AIPAC is complaining on social media about being challenged on how to give how they give to candidates. Does AIPAC have unusual influence on our politicians? Yes, it's weird that they care only about one country, not the US. No, even though no country controls US politicians like them. So yes or no? 98% said yes, they have super unusual influence, and only 2% said no, I don't see any unusual influence out of 13,000 votes.
Wow.
So that's real Americans, real human beings, versus mainstream media, who says the exact opposite, 98-2. What influence? Israel, I never heard of them. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm in news, I'm a reporter. Okay, John.
Okay, let's maybe have fun. I think this is funny in a dark way, but anyway, let's jump into this. Donald Trump sending the DOJ after the woman that he sexually abused strikes, I think, most Americans as a horrific line being crossed. But for Nick Fuentes, it's actually the best news that he's heard all week.
We're also going to talk about Trump's epic lawsuit against his rape victim. See, this is what I love to see. And he's going to bring the full weight of the White House down on this 83-year-old SA victim. Finally, some good news. I love to see a guy fight back. He's going to put her in her place. More of this. See, this is the thing about the Trump administration. Why can't it just be fighting our actual enemies? Women, Hasan Piker, illegal immigrants, African migrants, the Jews. Why can't we fight our actual enemies that are everything up?
Yeah, inflation's really gotten out of control because of Hasan Piker. Let go of the gas prices, Hasan. You're ruining us. But anyway, so that's madness. But he doesn't just want them to be gone after. He wants them to be locked up, and not just Hasan, by the way. Listen to this and see if any names stick out to you.
So we're fighting the good guys. What we should be doing is invading Canada, invading Mexico, invading Cuba. What we should be doing is imprisoning Hasan Piker forever, imprisoning his uncle. Anna Kasparian can go free, she's okay. We should be going after the SPLC, the ADL. We should be going after the Me Too victims. Honestly, we should be going after them. We should be going after BLM and the rest of them.
Yeah, I really wish that I watched more of his show on a daily basis. He seems cool. But anyway, this idea, and I'll allow you to respond to him wanting you to be locked up, but for some reason not Anna. He didn't mention me, I guess I'm cool too. Anyway, this has become a common refrain of his, that everybody that he disagrees with and everybody that has an identity not like his needs to be locked up at the very least quickly. So he recently said the #1 political enemy in America is women. They have to be imprisoned. I don't know if Anna would go to jail under this, but he says they go to the gulag first. They go to the breeding gulags. I don't think he has a personal interest in that. This is the guy that said that having sex with women is gay, but he wants other women, I guess, to be impregnated against their will by someone. He also said, let's arrest everybody. We can do it. Go out there, find them, put them in jail. The government has limitless resources. Crush them like they crushed us. Forget about passe comitatus. Like, no, the military is going in the streets. And this is, we've heard this before. This is just fascistic sucking up to any strong man that can rid him of these pesky people that he has neither the intellect or the force of will to convince of his policies or positions. And so everyone who doesn't look like him, everyone who doesn't think like him needs to be shot, please. That's the only thing that makes men this week feel confident for even a second.
Yeah, I have a theory about why he's doing this. And I'm not even sure that it's exactly right. So I'll share with you all talk it through here, right? But first, some of the obvious stuff. So, gee, I wonder why Anna wouldn't be arrested. Could it be that she's a blonde white woman that they're all attracted to? Okay, maybe that has something to do with it, but great, glad she's not arrested. So a couple of things are big tells there. Look, my main charge these days against Nick Fuentes is not that I'm outraged by it. Like, he wants me arrested, so what, okay? I'm not like the Israelis. He should be killed and locked up or whatever, right? No one should ever talk to him again. No human being should ever lay eyes on him. No, okay. I mean, he's certainly attacking me more than he's attacked anyone. I mean, he's saying my freedom should be taken away for no reason, right? Yeah. That's not my main issue. My main issue is he's become a little boring. he's not an interesting person anymore, right? So here's what I mean by that. So, okay, you wanna arrest, the Me Too victims, and he even called them victims. Why? Like, what is, that's, all right, I get it, you're trying to get attention, but there's no ideology there. There's no governing philosophy there. A person is interesting when they have something that drives them, like Tom Massey. I might disagree with him 90% of the time, but he clearly has guiding principles that drives him. And then it turns out when you have guiding principles, you could be honest about certain things. And even if we disagree on some stuff, you go, oh, whoa, look at that, we do agree on that. See, that's an interesting person to have an interesting conversation with. But then you say, what, arrest all African migrants? Now, if you say, okay, I've got a cover story and I found some Somalis in Minnesota that have done some fraud, and I'm gonna get everybody to hate Somalis or African migrants because of that, I don't like that either, and I think that's a poor cover story. But if you say, hey, the guy who actually did the fraud should be arrested, well, of course he should, right? No problem. I don't care what race or religion he is, but if he committed a crime, of course he should be arrested. When you say every African migrant, whether they did a crime or didn't do a crime, should be arrested, well, you're just a vanilla fascist. Like, that's not interesting. Now you just become like a normal skinhead kind of guy.
I think that's his brand, is that he wants to appeal to the people who, I like the Nick Shirley stuff. I guess we'll pretend that it's about fraud, but I really just want to be able to say all black people should be locked up. And I just want to say that all women should be able to be forcibly impregnated by me.
Yeah.
And he's, I guess, giving them that, I suppose.
So, and of course he says we should lock up all the Jews. And so I don't believe him. So that's my theory. We'll get back to that theory. Should you arrest all the Jews? For what? What are you arresting him for? So if you say, hey, there's a particular guy who turns out is an asset or an agent and was inside the country and took money from Israel or was blackmailed and then did something illegal, yeah, sure, he committed a crime, arrest that guy, right? But if you say, go arrest a random Jewish dentist in Cleveland, why? What did he do to you? That doesn't make any sense, right? And he gives the game away on a couple of things, including my arrest. Okay, again, they have like this paper thin excuse on Hasan, which is hilarious. He went to Cuba and he stayed in a hotel that was, that you should be arrested if you stay at that hotel. It turns out, oops, he didn't stay at that hotel, but Nick Shirley did, the guy you love. So that's backfired spectacularly, but at least they have something to pretend about. In my case, he just threw me in a list like, I don't know, also arrest Cenk Uygur. I don't need a reason. Okay, well then you're telling me you have no governing philosophy. You're, again, a boring, plain old, skinhead or fascist or whatever you want to call it. I don't really care about the words, right? People get all hung up on the words like, oh, he's not a fascist, he's authoritarian. So what? What's the difference, right? Okay, so like, Tucker's super interesting. Tucker is totally right about Israel. I think it doesn't say any of this stuff about Jews or others. Now, at the same time, he says some things that you go, hey, that might cross the line. There's things I agree with, there's things I disagree with, right? That's an interesting conversation. This is not an interesting conversation. This is boring, old. Look at me, daddy, I'm trying to get attention. I hate everyone, arrest everyone.
Yeah, it's funny because I both agree with you that it is boring. I definitely think that it's boring. But I also think that what you're describing is exactly the point. I think he is the end of the process of how right-wing politics have evolved over the past few decades. It has just become increasingly more and more, it is just identity. That is all that it is, that's all that they have. Go on Fox News and listen to them do a segment about James Talarico in the Senate race in Texas. There's no policy, there's no ideology. All there is identity grievances, generally around gender, sometimes about race, sometimes about religion. And I think his only play, because he's not an intelligent person, he's a creepy little goblinoid, that's all he is. But he knows there's some people out there that just want to be told, you're good because you're white, you're good because you're male, everybody else is bad because they're not those things. And I will give you an environment to just say that and to delight in it. And you don't need to do anything, you don't need to achieve anything. You'll get to just feel like you're superior because we're gonna say it at each other. And it is incredibly boring and it's not new. You used to be able to go on, stormfront.org back in the day and do this sort of Nazi chit chat hangout if you wanted to. But he has a TV show version of it. So I don't think I think it's incredibly boring, but I think that is kind of the point.
Yeah, I mean, it's the hate that Fox News has minus the propaganda. He just says it, right?
Yeah.
Like Fox News will say like, the Somalis in Minnesota, blah, 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 blah. And then they'll go to a specific fraud case so that they can hide behind that and then generalize, right? Fuentes just skips all that and goes, oh no, I just hate them for who they are.
Well, but right? The only thing I agree, but I think Fox has some groups like that. Like Fox has never been bold enough in the racism to be able to do that. They say wildly racist things and they always have. But they have some groups that they don't need to come up with some sort of cover story. Listen to them talk about trans people. There's no argument being made. They just attack. James Tallarico's oh, look at him, he's transgender. Obviously he can't be, which he's not, but obviously he can't be an elected official. Vegetarians, another group like that. You could just attack them. There doesn't have to be a cover story. Their identity is the story by itself. People who are anti-fascists or whatever. People who care about diversity. Like there's all sorts of things that they will do those without a cover story. There's no veil or anything. And I know that they want to get there on migrants and on black and brown people or whatever. I just don't think they're quite there.
Yeah, so the theory is this, guys, and I don't know if it's right, and certainly plenty of people online have the theory that Nick Fuentes is a deep state operation, right? Kind of a false flag in a sense. And so it seems wild, but then on the other hand, we've seen a lot of wild things happen recently. And so why would they do that? What's the logic behind it? First of all, what's some evidence? He was there on January 6th and with a bullhorn, like attack the Capitol, and then weirdly wasn't arrested.
Strange.
That's super strange, right? I don't know if he's ever really fully explained, well, he just got lucky, maybe, but it's weird, right? And so we just told you earlier in the show, I did a video about it on YouTube, that it turns out Ahmadinejad, the crazy leader of Iran between 2005 and 2013. Remember, he's not the full leader. The Grand Ayatollah's the leader. The president has only some power, right? And it's just mainly a person who is a figurehead that talks and represents Iran worldwide. And it turns out he was an Israeli agent, and the Israelis tried to free him during this war so that he could be put in place of the Ayatollah. And at the time, when he was in charge, he was like, oh, the Jews are the worst, and we hate Israel, and should be wiped off the map, and we should do our nuclear enrichment program. Now, why would Israel want that? Because it gives them an excuse to attack Iran, right? So if they got Ahmadinejad to actually start the nuclear enrichment program, remember they wanted to kill the Obama deal that ended Iran's nuclear weapons program. So, and remember, Israeli soldiers on October 7th said, we got a weird stand down order. So Israel provoking and then to have an excuse is Israel propaganda 101. Even if you say, look, I don't believe the October 7th one, etc. Ahmadinejad, the New York Times wrote about, that one seems like, I don't know how far back it goes that he was an Israeli agent, but it's pretty locked up. So could Israel put a guy like Nick Fuentes out to say, oh, forget Israel, it's the Jews, we hate the Jews, so that it makes it illegitimate to talk about Israel because he's connecting Israel and the Jews, right? That's why I keep saying, and I've said it on social media so many times, it's so weird how Israel First and the Groypers are the only two groups saying it's the Jews. Like nobody here is saying it's the Jews. Tucker Carlson actually doesn't say it's the Jews at all. That's just a giant lie. They're like, well, could inference a little bit, but he said the wrong kind of thing and blah, blah, blah. But in fact, he says the opposite. He says you should never judge people based on their religion, right? So the only people saying, people who are against Israel are anti-Semites are Israel First and Nick Fuentes, who's saying, yeah, we should all be anti-Semites. You should hate the Jews. It's weird. It's weird. Yeah. And now you go, so why go to this extra step? I mean, invading Canada and Mexico, it's clownish, right? I mean, does anyone really, if you watch Fuentes, you're taking that seriously? We're gonna really invade Mexico and Canada? And you think that's a good idea? Come on, nobody's that mental, right? So why is he saying stuff like this? I think that Israel, if it's true, and again, I don't know that I have no secret evidence, it's just a theory, and it's not my theory, it's a theory that exists online already, okay? But if it's true, you go to this level because Israel's lost the propaganda war. They've lost the media war, they've lost the influencing war, and now their propaganda doesn't work on us anymore. And it bounces off, especially under 50 years old, minus 45 approval rating, right? So then if you have paid off 94% of Congress, and you think, well, I can't convince the American people anymore, I'm gonna lose the elections, pro-Israel candidates can't win anymore, AIPAC's become toxic, well, let's go to outright oppression.
And how do you justify that?
And by the way, oppression through Palantir, through the surveillance state on the streets, through ICE, with masks, no badges. You got the drones. Larry Ellison is talking about how we're gonna surveil every American and follow you all around. And now all of a sudden, conveniently, the guy who was connecting Israel with the Jews, so you couldn't criticize Israel, comes around and goes, yeah, outright oppression. That sounds like a great idea. So I don't know if next thing he's gonna be like, Palantir, maybe Palantir. I don't know.
I mean, really fast, he could sell it to his audience as, no, this is about tracking the migrants and the black people and the women. That's what it's for, and you're okay with that, right? And then, the system gets set up and it serves other masters potentially.
Yeah, so look, I think that I have a lot of faith in the internet. I might be the only one, but I do. So in the short term, does the crowd online get it wrong? All the time. In the long term, I think that eventually we get to the right answer, right? And I've been in a million battles online, and at the end we get to the right answer, right? All of our opponents are in the dustbin of history because they were making stuff up, and then people eventually checked. Like I remember people said, "Oh, they're funded by Nancy Pelosi." Right?
Us?
Yeah, us. Okay, right? And then so they looked it up. They're like, "What are you talking about?" Not only is that not true, they lay into Pelosi almost every show when she was around, right? So eventually we figure out what's true or not true, right?
Yeah.
So will some folks, who, go for simpler answers, can't quite handle the complexity, still stay with Fuentes? I'm sure that exists, but I don't think that that's such a huge number. So I'm not as worried about him anymore, right? It's not as interesting, sophisticated argument. It's that there is no interesting ideology there. It's just back to the tiny fringe of guys who are like, yeah, us and not them. And by the way, ironically, that is, they claim to not like Israel, but that's a very Israeli point of view. Us, not them. We'll do anything for us to abuse them, okay? So that's not a governing philosophy unless you want to agree with Israel. So it just doesn't make any sense. So okay, have at it, and I'm sure he'll be angry about this. And John, don't worry, he'll want to put you in jail too, even though you're a white Christian, but you've betrayed somehow by not hating everyone, etc. But it'll get more and more boring as it goes along.
There we go. Okay.
All right. So we're out of time for this hour, but we got an amazing second hour coming up for you guys. So some interesting admissions by the Trump administration. Susan Collins goes after veterans. Curious decision that she forced into war. So a lot more coming up. We'll be right back.
Cenk Uyghur has the morality of a cockroach.
What contributions to the progressive cause are you most proud of? I mean, I don't have super high aspirations for a singular role that I can play in the movement or anything. I try to present myself as what I think that I am, which is a progressive man who is driven by I think, well-interrogated and well-organized system of values that I try to stay consistent on, and I demonstrate that that's the sort of life that a person can lead and be successful and be happy and all of that. And that should not need to be done, but there are so many people on the right that are trying to push men in the opposite direction that I want to be able to do that. Along the way, if I can get people to care about some topics that they wouldn't necessarily care about, or that for some men they might think that's not a topic that they should be focused on, that's definitely something that I relish doing. And along the way, I mean, we've been able to introduce people to a lot of candidates. That's been a big part of what we've done. Not all of them necessarily got in office. Probably most of them did not. And a lot of them you might not even remember their names. But it was great to be able to provide people the platform where they had the chance of making a difference. Obviously AOC and all that, but there's been a lot of great people along the way.
In the bonus episode for the members, we do some inside baseball. We're gonna look at John's desk. Nice little spaceship here. Nerd, but it is kind of look cool. Who has Legos? Oh no, he's taking apart a keyboard. Who has a mouse pad that's this big? He's got a dog with a nose that you could hang something on. You know what this desk screams to me? Nerd. And that's how we like him. We love Johnny Pie. He's got his own personality like everybody does at TYT. Come meet us all in the bonus episodes. TYT.com/team.
David Sorrell, Nina Turner. Adam Green drop by.
Charlemagne.
Congressman, great to have you. It's great to be with you, Cenk.
Your show is a great thing. You're informing people. A lot of the shows that I live on, my CNN, my MSNBC, and even Fox, and any of the other shows, NPR, they are so quick to decide that they know what this building means today.
The one thing that I hate that politicians do, they talk about the people they should be talking to.
Do they have any idea that they're the establishment and that they're hated? Or do they not realize that at all?
People are so deeply in their little universe. I think it's very easy to not really question what you're doing.
Voters have a right to ask questions of any nominee, whether they're independent, Republican, or Democrat.
The system is duopoly that suppresses competition.
How is it the year 2024 and we're still like, maybe they'll talk about paid medical? Like, how is that like at one level, it's like, this is what we're talking about now. You're like, it's 2024.
And that's always been the critique, your critique of us is, well, you guys give good speeches, you put out good tweets, but you're not wielding actual power. Now we're starting to.
My favorite news platform by far. It's not even close.
It's about a country and a principle, and that's what you and I both worked to achieve, and I'm so glad that at least half the battle has now been won.
If you want to go really hear what's going on honestly, you should tune into the Young Turks.
Thanks for doing such a great job. Please keep it up. Hang tough.
Yeah.
That makes me so happy.
Oh, I like making that.
I didn't know about that.
This is a happy experience. You're welcome, YouTube.
Join the Dragon Squad by becoming a YouTube channel member. Click the join button below or sign up on tyt.com/join to get access to fun emojis, a member-only chat, exclusive shop TYT designs, ad-free watching, and so many other amazing perks. Plus, you get bragging rights for being part of the coolest community on the internet and help us drive real positive change in the world. The Dragon Squad awaits, so join today.
Have you been drinking anything today?
I hadn't drank in 3 years.
Good for you. Congratulations.
Yeah. Until today.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk Uygur, Yasmin Aliyah Khan with you guys. Good to see you again, Yas.
Happy to be here.
Love to have you. So we got a lot of news for you guys in this segment. I just want to give you a couple of quick reminders. So if you're in London next Monday through Wednesday, June 1st to 3rd, I'm going to be at South by Southwest London. So check that out if you can. Love to see you there. And then want to remind you guys that I was on Diary of a CEO with debating Kevin O'Leary. And I was on with Candace Owens. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in this hour. But check both of those out on tyt.com/press. Did people say I won that debate? I guess. Only about 100% of the audience though. Okay, yes, what's next?
All right, we have Graham Plattner versus Susan Collins. So Graham Plattner just completely unleashed on Senator Susan Collins after she downplayed her role in unleashing the Iraq war on all of us, including him. So Plattner served in that war, and he has been very outspoken about the PTSD that he suffered as a result. Cenk, how do you imagine this plays out?
Yeah, it plays out great. So Susan Collins is toast. My summation of this segment is going to be: told you. Run a real person, a populist, instead of corporate robot Democrat. I will promise you things in fancy language and never deliver. Schumer and the other idiots thought that robot would win. It's lost to Susan Collins every time. This time we're going to kick her ass politically, and you're about to see some of that ass kicking right now.
I love when Cenk prophesies because usually you're right, and I like that prophecy, so thank you. So, in a recent interview, Plattner was asked if he felt anger or any kind of regret for his role in the Iraq War, and here's what he had to say. He said, "Susan Collins voted to send me to Iraq, and she's also there to help Donald Trump continue this absolutely insane conflict in the Strait of Hormuz. If I have any anger, it is reserved for the political system itself and the people in it who view war not as a thing that has a human toll, but as a political game." And in response to his comments, this is what Susan Collins had to say, and it is absolutely bonkers. She said, he not only enlisted twice after the war was started, but he also went to work for a security company, a controversial one named Blackwater, after his term in the service was over. So I respect anyone who steps forward to serve their country, but the fact is that was Plattner's decision to serve. He was not drafted. That is an insane response, in my opinion, to anyone who had served in a war, especially one that she voted for and supported. But let's watch and see what Plattner had to say in response to that.
Susan Collins voted to support starting the war in Iraq. On 3 occasions after that, she voted against withdrawing troops. On at least 2 occasions, she voted to fund the war. Now, all these years later, instead of acknowledging that she was wrong, she's decided that she's going to blame those of us who in our late teens and early 20s signed up to serve our country. That somehow it's our fault that she and establishment politicians like her wanted to abuse our willingness to serve, to go send us off to fight in stupid wars that did nothing but make some people very, very rich at the expense of American taxpayer dollars. It's no surprise to me, because even today, she continues to not stand up against the stupid war in Iran. She continues to not stand up against any of the abuses or the idiocy coming out of the Trump administration. No, the answer for Susan Collins is that she didn't have any power at all. Her votes to support the war in Iraq, that didn't mean anything. Those of us who put on the uniform, those of us who joined the US military, it's our fault for doing that.
I love that he clarified in his response that they were in their teens and their early 20s when they enlisted, because that is what the whole recruitment system that we have in this country is very predatory. They go to high schools, they go to college campuses, and they recruit people who are young and virile and strong and maybe don't know exactly what their future is. They say, we'll help you pay for college. They entice these young people to enlist in the military. And then you have people like Susan Collins, who sits in Congress and makes votes and says, well, that wasn't my fault. You chose to go. And then you chose to stay there, even though now, like, once you're in the military, you're very much on a path. Cenk, what are your thoughts on this? I know you have more too.
Yeah, so she's an old ghoul, and there's a lot of these people that are floating around Congress, in fact, probably the majority of them. I remember when they were wheeling around Dianne Feinstein in a wheelchair, and she was mumbling and drooling, and Pelosi's sister was like literally rolling her around going, no, she doesn't mean any of that. This is how she's voting, this is what she means. And Susan Collins is another one of those like widgets. So different donors buy her, not just Israel. We're gonna show you Israel in a second because they're related to the wars. But I mean, the oil companies, the drug companies, she's betrayed you in every way imaginable. Now, I was gonna tell you a whole bunch of things about how she voted for Iraq and Iran wars and always war, but Graham Plattner already said it. See, now normally I'd have to educate you on that because our candidates would be the establishment candidates picked by dumbass Chuck Schumer. And I've seen this happen. We've been around, we're the oldest show in internet history. We've been around forever. So I've seen many races against Susan Collins. And then we would have terrible candidates going, while I agree with Susan Collins on Israel, they are our beloved ally and we should do every war for them. And while I love oil companies and drug companies, I slightly disagree with her. Well, how are you gonna win if you slightly disagree with her, but you agree to all of her framing? And it's not just Susan Collins. I've seen this movie a million times, guys. If you had my job, you'd be so frustrated because for the last 25 years, the Democrats do the same dumb thing on purpose. And you know, one of my theories is that they're paid to lose. The donors give money to really strong Republicans who say, business, corporate interests, foreign government, we must serve them. And they give tons of money to weak Democrats who are like, we agree with the Republicans, except slightly less so, but their framing is correct. And then they all get annihilated and they go, oops, did we lose? Oh, I guess those guys who love corporate donors and foreign governments are in charge. So that's how this game's been being played. I mean, covered Claire McCaskill and Joe Donnelly. I wrote about it in my book, Justice is Coming. But they're like two of like dozens, maybe hundreds of examples where they run ads. They run ads about like, now I'm not a normal Democrat. The Republicans are really right about this and that. And I love Reagan and I love George W. Bush. But please vote for me anyway. I'm so sorry. Well, that loser's gonna lose because he's telling you he's a loser, that he's pathetic, and that he basically agrees with the other side. So what's super interesting about Graham Plantner is that he's so strong and speaks like such a real person. He's kicking her ass in the polls. He's now got a 7-point lead. We've never had a lead against Susan Collins. But since he's anti-establishment, and one other fact in particular, which I'm gonna show you in a second, not only are Republicans fighting him, the Democratic Party is sending Democratic legislators on cable news to say, not Graham Plantner, remember he has the wrong kind of tattoo, and I don't like his haircut at all. And have you seen his clothes? He won't even button up a tie, and he hasn't even groveled to any corporate donors. So Auchincloss, this corporate donor, corporate Democrat on TV going, oh, by the way, also lover of Israel, trying to push us back into the war. And he's like, oh no, Graham Plantner is unacceptable. Hey, jerk, what happened to unity? What happened to vote blue no matter who, right? No, they never meant it. Unfortunately, the great majority of Democratic politicians at the national level are not really Democrats. They're frauds. They are cutouts that represent the donor class, and their job is to get Democratic voters to lose and never implement our policies. That's why Democrats are so upset about Graham Plantner, not the voters. The voters love him, but the politicians are like, how dare he? Now, what is the one issue that drives them craziest out of all of Graham Plantner's populism? Well, let's take a look at this graphic with Susan Collins and Graham Plantner with AIPAC and their contributions, their AIPAC tracker. Oh, look at that, Graham Plantner is 0, not beholden to Israel at all. That's it, everyone in Washington hates him. Everyone in politics, everyone in media, they despise him for not being a slave to Israel. Oh, Susan Collins, nicely done, 1.8 million, totally works for Israel. Washington loves her. All the Republicans, all the Democrats, yay, Susan Collins! She's weak, she loves Israel in every war she's forced you to go into for Israel. And now she rubs it in and she's like, well, you made the dumb choice to sign up. Well, if you sign up, I'm gonna send you to Israel's wars because I took $2 million that you know of, let alone the super PAC money. So look, this race is over. Which American in their right mind is gonna vote for the Israeli instead of the American? So the only reason why all these Israeli assets won before was because they had overwhelming air power. And what do I mean by air power in this case? American media. American media was like, oh, incumbents, a great experience, wonderful, incumbents are great. She has a money in advantage. So she's a leading candidate has a money advantage. She's for Israel, she's great, she's amazing, she's wonderful. Oh, has the wrong kind of tattoo, cancel him. Do you know what he wrote 27 years ago? So for outsiders, cable news guys especially are lying. So like, we're gonna hold you accountable for what you did when you were 11. Okay, you were a naughty 11-year-old. The insiders, they're like gobbling up millions of dollars in corruption and driving people to wars that are destroying our country and getting people killed. They're like, I don't see it. No, Susan Collins is the wonderful, wonderful incumbent, right? Criticize her, how dare you, right? So now that we're getting past our disgusting mainstream media, who is one of the absolute pillars of corruption, guys like Graham Plantner are gonna politically annihilate people like Susan Collins. Yeah, as you're muted.
Got it. Yeah. The strength of the incumbency, it does kind of blow my mind because, like, why would someone like Susan Collins continue to get reelected time and time again, even though a lot of people don't really seem to like her and she doesn't seem to be particularly good at her job? This is why we have term limits, so that at the end of the term, people can reassess and say, did you do a good job? Did you do the things that I wanted you to do when I voted for you the last time? And if the answer is no, then you shouldn't have to vote for them again. You should have another option. But instead, in this country, Nancy Pelosi has been in office for longer than I've been alive. And she's only leaving now because she's choosing herself to step down. She wasn't primaried out of there. She had some primary challengers, but who's to say if that would have done anything? Because again, almost 40 years in office, she's just been there. And the people of San Francisco, they didn't seem to like her very much, but they just keep voting her back in time and time again. And I understand that name recognition can go a long way, but especially someone like Susan Collins, who, as you pointed out, is aging well beyond where I think someone should be still serving in Congress. But just the fact that she can come out with this kind of response to Graham Plattner, the guy who very likely is going to take her seat soon, and not be worried that that's going to cost her something, that thinking that she is in the right to make that kind of a comment. It's so out of touch and it's so indicative of Congress, right? That is the problem that most people have with Congress right now, and that is why people are looking now more to progressives and to young people. Finally, we need to start getting some millennials, even Gen Xers, more into office. Just cycle like that's how it's supposed to work. Mamdani is inexperienced, and look at everything that he's doing in New York. He's getting so much done, probably because of his inexperience. You need somebody sometimes to go into a job and have the audacity to be like, why can't we do this differently? And he actually comes from the people. He hasn't been sitting in Congress for the last 20, 30, 40 years, so he understands the people a little bit better. And for Susan Collins to be speaking in this case, particularly about war and sending people to war, that is the epitome of tone deaf. The thing with war, what's the, I'm bad at my idioms, but the thing where war is fought by young people and is decided by old men in a room somewhere, whatever the idiom is, I don't remember. But that is, she's exemplifying that so perfectly right now, like she's removed from it. It doesn't matter. She can cast a vote yes or no, and then go home, go to dinner, go to sleep, Yep. Meanwhile, people like Graham Plattner actually have to suffer the consequences of what these Congress people are doing.
Yeah, so I'm super proud that Graham Plattner is part of Rebellion PAC. So he's part of what I call the rebellion against the system for real change. Support Rebellion PAC at rebellionpac.org. Speaking of which, real quick, guys, there's a bunch of populist candidates. That's why we started Rebellion for left-wing populists. Shoykat Chakrabarti is actually in that Pelosi district and was running against her on day one. And what happened there, Yaz, was that Shoykat started to pick up strength and momentum. And then when Mamdani won, Pelosi wrote 2 letters before his election. If he had lost, she was gonna stay in the race. She had a letter saying, no, 1 more term. But when Mamdani won, she got scared of Shoykat beating her. And he's another rebellion candidate. So this thing is real, right? And then she retired. So right now he's in a really tough race. They put in another pro-Israel establishment guy to run against Shoykat. And they're like, oh no, this guy who is wonderfully pro-Israel is the right way to go. Don't vote for Shoykat, right? So check that out. That's California 11. Audrey Denny is another rebellion candidate in California 1. Amar Kampanijjar is also in California, and Tom Steyer as well. They're not rebellion candidates, but I like them a lot. And what's funny is this, so Steyer is not your typical populist, right? He's a billionaire, and what's he doing in this? Well, he doesn't take corporate PAC money, and he doesn't take foreign government money because he doesn't need it. And guess what is happening? Mainstream media is attacking Tom Steyer. Even though he's wealthy, they're like, oh, he's not experienced. You know why? Because it's not about wealth. It's about, are you going to work for the donor class, for the corporations, for Chamber of Commerce, Israel, whatever other foreign governments are paying you. So when Steyer says, no, I won't work for them, I'll work for the voters, they're like, no, inexperienced, no, don't vote for Steyer. Don't vote for Shoykat, don't vote for Graham Plattner. You know what, here's a really simple guide. I mean, you can go to rebellionpac.org, just a lot of wonderful candidates there. But the simplest guide of all is, if mainstream media is against the candidate, they're almost certainly the right candidate. And they hate Graham Plattner. So and they love Susan Collins. So the jury's in on that one. Definitely Graham.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see what's actually going to happen in November. I always say this, I'm like cautiously optimistic. I don't want to be disappointed again, because who knows, a lot can happen between now and November, but there are a lot of really great candidates out there. And if only people knew about them and just remembered their names by the time they went to the ballot box, we would be in a much different situation in this country come November. So,
last thing. I just saw this breaking news. The last poll I saw had Plattner up by 7, new poll out up by 9. It's not. I was gonna say it was nice knowing you, Susan Collins, but it really wasn't. Okay, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we've got ICE doing horrific things. We'll explain when we return. All right, let's go and read some comments blind, as we like to do. Asimov Prophet writes on TYT, we are at fault for Israel's mentality. After World War II, we let them go around the world killing escaped Nazis with impunity, no matter the civilian deaths. Why would they think in other countries' borders laws mean anything? So look, the killing of the Nazis was one thing, but I hear you. They were violating sovereignty of other countries, and so there's a little bit of tinge of there, like, I don't know that's the right thing to do, but it seemed cool killing the Nazis. But then they started killing Palestinians all across the world. And we let them do that too. And then they started killing everyone across the world and didn't care about international law at all. And America was like, oh, do you want a couple $100 more billion? And we enabled every bad instinct that they had. And we're way past the Nazis now. Now we're at 23,000 dead kids in Gaza, and both Joe Biden and Donald Trump were like, do you need more money to break more international law and to commit more war crimes? No, there's something deeply ironic about what happened to Israel. We're not missing it. I mean, look, and some of their supporters like Peter Thiel, et cetera, during the last break, we're talking about how he's moving to Argentina now. And a bunch of these guys are moving to Argentina. I mean, how's this for ironic? The Nazis moved to Argentina. I mean, yeah, fascism is a hell of a drug. Theater Goddess writes in, I would be more concerned about the possibility of Cenk going to jail if Fox hadn't pulled a Haas getting subpoenaed stunt. It's probably the same nonsense, so I'm not worried. TYT for me says, I heard that former German Nazi, you said it. Same thing about the Argentina point, so good point. And I'm out of time, we'll be right back. Back on TYT, Cenk and Yaz with you guys. Yaz has got more news for us.
Yeah, not fun news, this story. Let's take a look at this one.
They are getting more health care than they've ever gotten in their lives. They get around-the-clock mental health care, dental care, medical care, and they get 3 squares. Now, this hunger strike, Jessica, because they don't have ethnic food, what do we want? Chicken chimichangas, chalupas, pico de mayo, de gallo. Does the Jamaican in there for homicide, does he get jerk chicken? It's not Epcot, Jessica. It's a ICE detention facility.
50 people have died in those facilities, and they didn't die because they didn't have chimichangas. So that's just Jesse Waters going, I get to be racist on Fox News. Yeah, and let's abuse people, because that's the moral family values thing to do. Is it? Is it, or are you a giant a-hole? All right, Yaz, give us the story on how badly people are being treated by ICE, and I guess how much right-wingers like it. Because I'm not speaking for you guys, but if you think that that's like a wonderful thing to abuse other human beings, something a little off with you. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, and the thing is, Jesse Waters, he really just doesn't even know what he's talking about, or he's just lying to his audience because the detainees in these ICE facilities simply are not getting the kind of care that they should be. And a new AP investigation actually found that ICE detainees across the country are dying by suicide at record numbers. So here's the reporting. It says at least 10 detainees have died by suicide since President Donald Trump returned to office in 2025 and ordered ICE to increase arrests and deportations, the investigation found. There have been 7 such deaths since October, already the most in a fiscal year. And 7, it doesn't sound like that big of a number. It might not seem like a big deal, but prior to the start of Trump's second term, ICE had usually recorded 1 or 0 deaths by suicide annually. So the suicides actually account for nearly a fifth of the 51 deaths in ICE custody since January 2025. The majority of those deaths were from natural causes, and experts say that many of them would have been preventable with timely medical care. So it's all just a waste. At least 32 deaths have happened in 2025 alone. And again, this is marking the highest number of annual deaths recorded by the agency in over 20 years. And according to the investigation, 9 out of the 10 who were reported to have committed suicide were indeed Hispanic, and the other one was a Chinese citizen. So more reporting, they had usually been in ICE custody for less than a month and sometimes only a matter of days, according to AP's review of ICE data, autopsy reports, coroner's rulings, and police records. And 7 out of 10 had no record of violent crime. So we know how infuriating that all is. The fact that none of this needed to happen, the fact that they said they were going after these violent criminals, and these are just people who are in there, grandparents, children, non-violent people. But now the question is, why has this number increased so dramatically during this Trump era? Well, according to AP, there is a multitude of contributing factors, including ICE detainees report intense stress after being detained. There's fear of going back to countries where they say they will not be safe. There's frustration and loneliness over the inability to communicate due to a language barrier. And of course, there's helplessness due to the fact that our immigration laws are incredibly complex and difficult to navigate. But here is the thing, okay? So ICE becomes responsible for their well-being when they enter detention, and experts say well-run lockup should have few, if any, suicides. That's because staff can take steps to mitigate the chances that detainees harm themselves by identifying those at risk, getting them care, and monitoring them closely. But AP's investigation found that ICE detention centers have, as you can probably imagine, fallen very short of their own standards. And the AP found that staff in the facilities ignored signs of distress, delayed mental health treatment, and failed to monitor detainees who were already deemed at risk. They also permitted detainees to have access to materials that could be used for self-harm, according to AP's review of ICE inspection reports and death records. And in some cases, they jailed distressed detainees in isolation, which can exacerbate feelings of humiliation and helplessness. And ICE has repeatedly asserted that it screens detainees within 12 hours of arrival for medical, dental, and mental health conditions. At least 3 of the 9 facilities where ICE detainees died by suicide have struggled to meet that standard, according again to the ICE inspection reports and jail records. So in one case, a man named Chaofeng Ge entered an ICE facility run by the GEO group, already in mental distress, and he had previously attempted suicide while he was in state custody. But did the ICE facility take any of this into consideration the way that they were supposed to, according to their own standards? No, they did not. And according to his family's attorney, David Rankin, in 5 days at the facility, he did not get the mental health treatment and was unable to communicate because no one spoke Mandarin. Ultimately, Ge went unmonitored before he was found hanged in a shower stall. And he said that it's clear that ICE has taken very few steps to ensure the safety of these people. They appear to want to make this process as cruel and inhuman as possible. It's completely unacceptable. And we know that the Trump administration really just does not care at all about the well-being of these immigrants. They have said that much themselves. We've heard the way that they talk about these immigrants, whether they're legal here, whether they're violent or not. Especially, Trump says out loud that he sees them all as, quote, the worst of the worst. Okay, that's how he talks about these people. But going back to Jesse Waters for a second, it is important to remember that according to 71% of current detainees have no criminal convictions. And many of those convicted have only minor offenses, including traffic violations. So this is why you're seeing detainees at New Jersey's Delaney Hall, for instance, go on a hunger strike and a labor strike to protest all of the inhumane conditions that they're now forced to live with. And that is a little bit of what Jesse Waters was referring to. But what they say over at the New Jersey Delaney Hall Detention Center, one of the detainees said, "We're not treated like people, we are treated like animals." And yeah, I think that just about sums it up. All of this is so incredibly unnecessary, but I'm not surprised, Cenk, that this is what the administration is doing, given all the rhetoric and all the hateful people who are there in our administration right now. But the people who are still supporting this administration, I don't know what to do with them anymore.
Yeah. So lots to say there, because I want to give some people some options as to what they can support in terms of policy here. And I'm curious how folks react to those options that are in the audience. But speaking of the audience, first, one of our members on TYT.com made a great point and I wanted to share with you guys. And sometimes if you guys make us laugh or it's a point that I should have thought of but didn't, I'll give you a $100 Blue Apron gift card if you're watching the show live and you're a member. And you make one of those points. I'm gonna do that in this case too. Emitib2, sorry for butchering your name. So go to rewards@tyt.com since you're definitely a member. Anyways, they wrote in, if the ICE detainees want better treatment from this government, they need to get convicted of being a child groomer. And so that's both funny and totally true. So if you were an Epstein client or some associate of Epstein and you either groomed children like Ghislaine Maxwell did, well, then you get minimum security. She pretty much, there's reports out that she almost runs the jail. She's allowed to have pets. She's allowed to order food in. And she's the biggest child groomer in American history. And she's getting incredible, luxurious treatment. Meanwhile, the people that they're abusing, 7 out of 10 of them are not criminals at all. In fact, the ICE detention system is not supposed to be punitive. It's just supposed to get people who are in the country without documents and get them out of the country. That's it. You don't have to punch them in the gut or torture them on the way. And they're not like weirdo hardened criminals. If they were, that's a totally different category. And I'll come back to that. But why does the child groomer get luxurious treatment and these people who just came here looking for hope and opportunity and didn't break any laws are being brutalized to the point where some of them are committing suicide? But put aside Ghislaine Maxwell, she's the groomer. We have all those child rapists that Epstein was associated with. We didn't even bother investigating them, let alone arresting them, prosecuting them, and then mistreating them in prison. Now you're doing that to those people, or maybe we're having a conversation. You didn't do it to anyone, right? But those guys are free to go. They're rich, powerful, you wanna rape kids, whatever. Trump, Biden didn't investigate, the Democrats didn't investigate, Republicans didn't investigate, and now Trump's saying, who cares? Who cares? Let them all off. And then there's Tom Alexandrovich, the guy who tried to rape a 15-year-old here in America. He's an Israeli government official. They're like, you're Israeli? Oh, no, the Americans that are arrested with you, they're going to prison. You get a free trip back to Israel. Guy was running a biolab, turns out in Vegas and in LA, had like AIDS and like all of these different disastrous diseases he cooked up in his lab. He's got weapons everywhere. And people went into this apartment, got sick, right? They're like, you're Israeli, you're free to go. Wait, and those guys are actually foreigners from a different country and broke massive laws. Free to go. Grandma from El Salvador, you're Punisher. She's the bad guy? Okay, come on, guys. So one more piece of context here. Normally, in a given year before Trump, it's not like ICE didn't exist, they did exist. And so would suicides happen from time to time? Yeah. So there would be either 0 or 1 suicides every year. So about half a suicide a year. In an incomplete year, we already have 10. So totally out of proportion to anything that's happened before. Partly because sometimes they're putting them in isolation, which is a form of torture. For what? They didn't even, you're gonna deport them. You don't have to torture them along the way. So and by the way, 51 died overall mostly from natural causes. A lot of them from conditions that weren't treated. Because they go in there and they're like, oh, yeah, right, yeah, sure you got cancer, buddy. Oh, damn, he died of cancer. Yeah, you're supposed to treat people. They're not prisoners, but even if they were, guys, this isn't how you should treat prisoners. All right, so finally, here's your 3 choices, roughly speaking, right? Some folks were extreme on one end, and they said, even if they're undocumented criminals, no, we shouldn't deport them, and we should have an open border. And if you think that the people didn't say that, no, they did. I debated them. And I said, look, brother, what do you want? You'll have 3 billion people in the country if you have open borders. And they never really had a good answer for that. But guys, they're a tiny, tiny group. Barely any of them exist. I know, I debated them. They're microscopic, right? So then there's a great majority of the country that goes, well, if you're undocumented and you're a criminal, of course we're gonna deport you, right? Should we close the border? Well, the border should always be closed. It doesn't mean close as in we're not allowing anyone in. We're not allowing anyone in without documents, without going through the legal process, but we have an asylum process, and that process should be relatively easy to use and quick in both directions. If you don't get asylum, sorry, but you gotta go back right away. If you do get asylum, okay, then you're in right away. And there's tons of good asylum cases of people who helped our military, people who were being abused or would get killed by gangs, et cetera, if they went back. And then finally, we wanna, so folks who say, yeah, deport folks who are criminals, but don't abuse them, don't torture them, just deport them, right? Even if they're criminals, you don't have to, stick an ice pick in their eye before you deport them. And don't deport them to the wrong countries, just deport them to the country they came from, right? That's the lion's share of the American population. And now, though, unfortunately, there's a different extremist group and they're in charge. So that's the Trump guys and others who say, no, let's hurt them on the way out. Let's sometimes deport them to the wrong country. Sometimes let's deport American citizens because, I don't know, they were Latino and we picked them up and we didn't check. That has happened many times. Let's kill some of, or through neglect, have some of them die in prison. Let's set up weirdo things like alligator Alcatraz. So like, oh yeah, we're gonna get alligators to eat you. What are we, like Frankenstein? We're like the Dr. Mengele? No, Americans are good people. You can't break the law and there's gotta be consequences for breaking the law. But this kind of extreme behavior to hurt folks just because they're immigrants who are undocumented is not right, and it's not American.
And Cenk, you made a lot of sense in what you were talking about when you were talking about the border and the way most Americans feel about immigrants and immigration in general. But that kind of stuff does not fly here in Texas. There's no common sense about it here in Texas because there's so much propaganda around the border. And even now when they have functionally closed off the border, right? Now we have a new enemy, a new big bad here in Texas, and it's the Muslims who make up like less than 1% of the population. So it really is just like so much propaganda that is coming at these people. And living in Texas, right? Functionally living out in the world here, it doesn't feel like we're just overrun with all these criminal gangs from Mexico or Central America. Like you don't feel unsafe. Maybe in different parts of the state, maybe it's worse. Maybe there is more criminal activity there. But the whole idea that all of this is justified because there's so much widespread crime and rape and violence at the hands of these immigrants who are just trying to come to this country. It's really like there is no basis for it. And what's so disturbing about all of this is the glee with which this administration is doing the things that it's doing, the way that we had people here in Texas, Border Patrol agents on horses who are just on their horses, just hitting and striking at immigrants who are on foot, and everybody, all the people, Texans, people that I know personally who still support this administration and the way that they go about treating these people. These are good Christian people, right? These are the people who say that they're the good guys, that they're better. And you know what? They just follow the law. Why is that so hard? Just comply with the law. Just go through the process. Well, then tell me why ICE agents are sitting there in courthouses waiting for people who are going through the legal avenues, right? And I do want to point out just real quick that those legal avenues, they're still working. People are still able to get through them the way that things are supposed to work. So, on some level, there are people who are working in positions of some kind of authority who are doing what they can to do so, to help these people, to get them processed the way that they need to be processed. But if immigration is really the problem that they say it is, then we need legislation to make it either easier or change the laws that have helped create the problems that we're dealing with now. But they don't want to have those conversations. They don't want to talk about it. Instead, they would rather build things called Alligator Alcatraz and wear T-shirts with the name Alligator Alcatraz on their chests like a bunch of weirdos, like not even weirdos, like psychos. Like, why are you celebrating any of this kind of thing? It's very strange. It's weird behavior. And Jesse Waters, his whole thing with his chimichangas and his pico de gallo, like he doesn't know what it's called. Like, you know what it's called. You live in New York City. We all know that you go downstairs when you leave the Fox studio, you go to all, your food trucks and you eat a kebab or whatever. We know who these people are. It's so tired. And the people who fall for these talking points, I really need them to just get out in the world and see that it's not that bad.
Yep. All right, guys, we're gonna take a quick break. When we come back, Anna Kasparian and Candace Owens talk. Did the world explode?
Gay nutcracker.
Box has a good point on Super Chat. 13th Amendment, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except as a punishment for crime wherever the party shall have been duly convicted. Yet, that does seem to be what's happening. Sandra Lee writes in on the YouTube member section, the Geo Group had been under DOJ contract under Biden, by the way. That's right. So no, Biden didn't have these kind of vicious policies, although he had to, I don't know why he didn't try to control what was happening at the border at all. That was so weird. But anyways, but he did make a contract with the Geo Group, which is a private prison company for ICE. So that part is definitely true. And so you got to hold everyone accountable, and Democrats make all sorts of dirty deals from time to time too. I mean, it's not like Biden knew a lot of dirty things when he was in office. Backwood Insanity says ICE is nothing but a bunch of police officers from city police departments across the nation, sheriff department across nation, state police procrastination, and other agencies. So any dumb crap cop can be ICE. I hear you. There's a lot of talk about how they're not getting properly trained enough, et cetera, and they're getting paid too much money. It's an incentive for folks without enough training and the right motivation to sign up. So lots of issues there. Nunya Bish says AIPAC is just a scapegoat. It's much deeper than just donations. Oh yeah, as we've been telling you, there's a network of people that support Israel in this country who try to intimidate and bully and terrorize any critic of Israel. Doomer Dog says Nick Fuentes is controlled opposition by Israel. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Yaz with you guys. I've got the next story. Let's get started.
I'm thrilled to have you. It's just so funny because we hated each other.
Yes,
so much.
So much. I mean, it is wild where we're at. I'm proud of my changes. I'm open-minded. I'm willing to have conversations with just about anyone as long as I know it's going to be good faith. And we have to find a way to bring the American people together because we are in the fight of our lives. Our government is not representing us. And the only way we can change things is if we're willing to build coalitions and work together on our system of government and making the reforms that we need.
So Anna went on Candace Owens' show. Heads exploded. Unacceptable. How dare you? You can't talk to the right wing. She has said the wrong things. That conversation is not allowed. Well, whether it's allowed or not, it happened. And we're going to break it down for you guys here. So they started off with talking about how the left-right paradigm is misleading and often abused. And a lot of people love that these days. Some people don't. They're in the tribal camps. We're never going to talk to anyone on the left. We're never going to talk to anyone on the right. You should only yell at them. Anything that we don't like that they have said disqualifies them forever. Well, Anna and Candace are not in that league anymore. And so they had a perfectly honest, frank, and interesting conversation. That's what happens when you put aside tribalism and talk about the things you might agree on, and something that our media doesn't want us to talk about. So let's see a lot more of this conversation, including some really interesting revelations by Candace, in my opinion. Let's watch.
To me, this isn't really about hatred toward Jewish people, which I find immoral, just like I would find hatred toward Muslims or hatred toward Christians. Like hating any group of people simply based on their identity is wrong. I've always been against that. Yeah. But yeah, it just seems like I forgot where I was going with that. Yeah, a lot of people, I think they were just kind of part of this algorithmic bubble where they're only exposed to one thing. And when it came to the Muslim population, I think that the dehumanization was seen in the media across the board. And that brainwashing worked for a really long time. I mean, it definitely convinced Americans to support wars that we shouldn't have supported.
Going back to those presets when we're in our youth, 9/11.
Yep.
It was so raw. It was so scary. The way they made us stand up at 9/11 every day, the time in school, moment of silence for what the Muslims did to us. Think about that's kind of. So I was just like, Muslims, this is just how they live. This is what they do, and didn't register to me as Islamophobia. I just thought I'm educated. It's a token of your education to understand how despicable Muslims are.
I think that is a super interesting conversation, and. Candace Owens gets a lot of flack from people who love Israel, of course. But she has said some things I don't agree with along those lines. I don't like to talk of Talmudic Jews, etc. But here's what Candace never gets credit for. The fact that she is fighting super aggressively against bigotry when it comes to Muslims. Did you hear anybody in mainstream media going, look, I don't agree with what she says about this or that? But atta girl, look at that. I haven't seen anyone fight this aggressively against bigotry against any group in a long time, and she's on the right. Wow, that's amazing. Same thing for Tucker Carlson these days, Marjorie Taylor Greene and others. No one's ever given them credit for that. And so I do. I think she's done an amazing job of fighting against bigotry against Muslims. And it doesn't mean she's right about everything, but what it does mean is that's a super positive thing that you can't take away from her. So if you say to me, no, because I disagree with her about something else, I want you to invalidate what she's saying about Muslims. No deal. So look, I've got a lot more where this came from because this conversation took a lot of twists and turns, including whether Candace feels like she was used by Daily Wire, including along racial lines. Super interesting. But yes, I want to bring you in here. Is it a fair point to say that that's a beautiful conversation to have about telling the right wing and the left wing, no, of course you shouldn't hate Muslims?
It's so sad to me that it needs to be said out loud, but that is the reality of this country right now. And Cenk, I think I've made this point before. Muslims make up maybe 1 or 2% of the entire population of this country here. Most people, they exist right there in front of you, and you haven't noticed them for this long because they don't bother you. They kind of stay to themselves, they do their thing, they go to work, they go home, they go to the mosque, they go home. You don't notice them because they're not bothering you. But also included in that 1 or 2% of Muslims in this country, Cenk, are people like me and you, right? I'm not even a practicing Muslim. I'm not a religious person, but I still technically count within that percentage. But we are just American people. And so the fact that anybody has to assert that they're American enough or that we're not trying to do Sharia law on you, right? Like, it's so ridiculous to me. And I do give Candace a lot of credit for understanding where she came from, that understanding of Muslims that she had growing up, and coming around and being like, oh, that was propaganda, because it really was. And especially if anybody remembers, Candace and I believe we're about the same age. We actually grew up not far from each other as well in Connecticut. But what's interesting about the 9/11 era was how Islamophobic the whole thing was. And I've said this before, where, I really do think that the way that George W. Bush was able to convince the American people that we had to go to war, we had to invade Iraq, was Islamophobia, because the American people knew that Muslims did this. And so a different Muslim country, we were just like too uneducated, too ignorant to understand at the time, and this is real, that was a different country, that those were completely different people, that Iraqis, as far as we knew, had nothing to do with what had happened on September 11th. It was just so much misunderstanding. And you would think that 20 years later, we understand that better, which we do. But what I've noticed is understanding that better doesn't necessarily translate in the sense that we don't recognize that pattern again when it is represented to us, maybe repackaged a little bit differently. We are very, very bad at pattern recognition here in this country. And I need us to get better and like quickly, because it's getting very tiresome.
Yeah, so look, I give both Candace and Tucker Carlson a world of credit for getting past the Muslim hatred propaganda that got spread in this country. But it's not just that, guys. And by the way, let's note for the record, their denunciation of bigotry against Muslims is better than any person in mainstream media. I haven't seen any cable news anchor say that as forcefully as Candace Owens or Tucker Carlson has. So they say, well, bigotry against people who support Israel, utterly unacceptable. Bigotry against Muslims, that's what they get paid for. And it's not just to randomly hate Muslims. It's not, they're like, there's one or two Muslim attacks and inside the country, and they're like, no, God damn the Muslims. Meanwhile, there's several million Muslims in America. To Yaz's point, they're dentists, they're accountants, they're plumbers, they're ranchers, and they didn't do anything to you. You didn't notice them because they're not all something. When you say it about any other group, it's considered unacceptable, but mainstream media has spread that hatred actively against Muslims. So they are much more immoral than Candace Owens or Tucker Carlson on this issue, and it's not really even close. But it's not just to spread hatred, it's to spread hatred for a purpose. What did we do after all that hatred against Muslims? Global war on terror. Was it really a global war? No, it was all in the Middle East and that region. Why? Because that's where Israel is. And so we attacked all of Israel's neighbors, by the way, including Iraq. Iraq didn't attack us on 9/11. Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11, but boo, Muslims. Boo, you gotta attack all of Israel's neighbors. And we did, we spent $8 trillion, we wasted $8 trillion attacking everyone that Israel wanted us to attack. They literally gave us a list of 7 countries. We attacked all 7, as everyone on television was telling you, hate the Muslims, hate the Muslims. If Candace is undoing that, then she's doing an enormous service to the country. If you don't like me saying that, I don't care. If you say, hey, I don't like what she says about something else, so I want you to hate the part where she says people shouldn't hate you. Why would I hate that part? No deal. But we got a lot more where that came from. So now, Anna's gonna ask an interesting question that leads to this exchange.
Do you feel like you were kind of used as a tool earlier in your career?
Absolutely, I know, not feel. It's a fact.
Because when you're critical of, let's say, the Black community, they love it, right? That's when you get a platform and you get all the plaudits and speaking engagements. But once you speak out against what's happening in Gaza, you're not that useful tool anymore.
That was one of the things that was really hard for me to contend with personally.
Yeah, so you wanna smear Black people, here's a big check. You wanna smear Muslims, an even bigger check. You wanna question our foreign policy in regards to Israel, you're fired. Okay, that's a fact. That's what happened. But more on that issue here.
Kind of in the midst of the same topic, really, right? So it's like you're talking about a race. You're saying, okay, this thing happened. So they were saying October 7th happened. BLM was saying the George Floyd thing happened. This is going to be the impetus now. And they were doing things that, in my view, still to this day, we're just wrong. I don't care what happened in Minnesota. You don't have the right to go into Target and grab a flat screen TV, right? And so I wanted to do a documentary. I wanted to dive deeper on the topic. And it was round of applause from a Daily Wire. This is amazing. Give her a platform. Then I watched virtually the exact same thing, right? Using race as an excuse, saying, oh, well, we have to do this for Jews. You had this event, this event that happened, which was singular, and then they tried to extrapolate it, and I'm going, well, it's still wrong, right?
Right.
The law is the law. Like, morality is morality. Doesn't matter if a black person does it or if a Jewish person does it. You don't get to rob and steal Palestinian homes.
Exactly.
And suddenly it was, you're an anti-Semite. You deserve to have nothing. You shouldn't even be allowed to travel to Australia because you are akin to Adolf Hitler.
That's
the
crazy.
Same people that gave me the platform.
So, guys, if you don't know this, the thugs who work for Israel affect the powerful in Western countries tremendously, and they make enemies lists. So, for example, myself and Hasan Piker, my nephew, are about to go to the UK. We're going to give a joint speech at Oxford, and we're both going to be at South by Southwest in London. And there are forces inside the UK trying to block Hasan from entering the country. Why? Because he said naughty things about Israel. Who cares? They're not even saying he said something bad about the UK. They're like, who cares about our own country? We must protect Israel. No one's allowed to say anything bad against. Why? Why? Who cares what Candace Owens said? By the way, as I've told you before, she says stuff about Talmudic Jews that I don't agree with, right? So that's bad, and I could argue against that and have that debate. But why do I have to ban her from going to Australia? If I got to ban everyone who says something negative about Muslims, nobody would get to travel. Okay, but Muslims don't have that kind of power, and people who support Israel do. Let's keep it real. So, but look, guys, it's not about race or religion. You have to apply things equally. That's equally true of discrimination against Jewish people. Are you crazy? Don't do that. That doesn't make any sense. And you heard Anna and Candace say that in the beginning. It's true of Muslim people. It's also true of Jewish people. It's also true of Christian people. You apply the same laws, the same philosophy to each group. No one is above the law. No one is above or below other people. So these should be obvious. But if you defy Israel, there will be consequences. And they spoke more about those consequences.
A very tough pill to swallow.
So Australia banned you after you said that it's a genocide?
Yeah, that was the beginning of I was temporarily banned for ads from YouTube because they are organized online and started mass reporting my new channel. I got banned from Australia, got fired from the Daily Wire. They started putting pressure, Bench Bureau in particular, on, this is the Zionist lobby. It's not just in America, it's global.
Yeah.
And so I went from being a rock star to suddenly she is Adolf Hitler and deserves nothing in her life because she has a moral principle. So you kind of look and you go, well, I have two options here. I can play the game, and do like the majority of people do, and just look the other way and say, oh, I don't really care about what's happening overseas.
Go along to get along.
Or you take a bold stand and you say, I'll rebuild it, because I don't want to have a house that's made because I'm silent on issues that actually impact my soul.
Yeah, and guys, this is not about Candace Owens or Hasan Piker. Do you know that the Israelis got a whole bunch of countries and banks to sanction UN officials who accurately labeled Israel's war crimes as war crimes in the United Nations? They're like, how dare you do your job and try to protect innocent civilians? That's it. Make sure she can't travel, she can't access money. And they brutalize innocent civilians in 1,000 different ways to make sure that no one is allowed to criticize Israel. So if you're gonna, you should blame Candace Owens for speaking out against that. No, I will not. No, I will blame her for the things I don't agree with, but I'm not gonna blame her for things that are absolutely true. And it's not just about her. It's about that network that definitely exists. And then the other disgusting, annoying thing that Israel supporters do is they go, oh, that network that's trying to ban you from different countries and debank you and get you fired from your job. You're the victim of it? We don't believe you, victim. So what? Who cares? We're allowed to do anything we want to you. And if you've been victimized by us, you're imagining it. Well, we're not imagining it. They try to get Anna's husband fired from his job as a gym teacher and a coach. Why? He hasn't said a word about Israel. No, the thugs came in and they feel perfectly justified. They're like, I have this wonderful elixir. It's called anti-Semitism. So the minute I throw that card out there, I could destroy you. Yes, that's what you look like. That's what you act like if you're one of those thugs who try to brutalize anyone who disagrees with Israel. So no, you don't get to destroy our lives and pretend that you're the good guy. You're the ones defending genocide and slaughter. You're not good guys. You're definitely the bad guys if you're in that camp. So now they talk about how it's a bit like a cult, which I couldn't agree more with. Let's watch that.
Not even a religion, a cult. And how quickly I was sort of excommunicated. And they tried to, just as if you're leaving a cult, convince me that I was the crazy person.
Right.
For saying something so sensible. Like, hey, killing kids is wrong. We shouldn't do that. Like saying a statement like Brian Mast did about the Palestinians, there's no such thing as an innocent Palestinian, which is what I was tweeting about in particular. Everyone should just have been like, of course, this is a wrong statement from Brian Mast. But they tried to play this psychological game on me where they were gaslighting me.
Like you were in the wrong because you realized that you have a sitting United States congressman wearing the uniform of a foreign country in the halls of Congress, talking about how it's okay to just slaughter an entire group of people, including women, children, elderly people, because of the cult he's in. It is a cult. And I mean, what are our values as a country? You'll see conservatives cheer on what's happening in Gaza and now Lebanon, and then purport to be pro-life.
Yep. That was one of the big ones for me where I was going, we're pro-life and you're telling me that there's an exception because you have some heretical theology that's telling you that, oh, all of these rules are of course we should be abiding by this. And of course it's the right thing to do. And God, Jesus Christ. And then they go, oh, but unless it happens in Israel, then it's okay. So I'm like, oh, wait, so there's this random carve out where we can mass murder kids as long as it's in Israel? Why doesn't every mass murderer just go to Israel and just do whatever they want? And then you just go, well, they're chosen. So this land is chosen so they can do whatever they want on this land. That was shocking for me. And it made me go a lot deeper on theology. I was like, what am I missing here? Like, how did I miss that I was in partnership with these people that you're right, this is not a theology for them, this is a cult.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think Zionism is an obvious cult and it's a nationalist cult. It doesn't have anything to do with religion. In fact, they attack other Jews all the time, which makes sense. That's how cults work. Because if you leave a cult, they hate you the most, right? So they'll chase you down to the ends of the earth. So some of these pro-Israel groups in the past have made lists of self-hating Jews in America that they also targeted. The same terror, in my opinion, the thug terrorist network went after Jewish Americans. How dare you defy Israel? You left a cult. We're gonna destroy you. Yeah, you look like a cult. That's exactly how a cult acts. We're allowed to kill people. You're not allowed to. Of course, nobody's allowed to. But we have special rules, and we don't have to listen to the rules. And we follow this maniacal leader who tells us to kill people. And it's because we're special. We're special. So look, I don't know any Jewish American here that believes in that Jews are the chosen people. I just don't know anyone like that. I'm not saying they don't exist in America, but I don't know anyone like that, and I think that they're a tiny, tiny minority in America. In Israel, that cult is gigantic. You just go to ask any settler and they'll tell you, God chose us to have this land and we get to clean out the Palestinians, kill them, sometimes rape them, and use any kind of violence we want to destroy them because God loves us and hates them and we get to do anything we want them. Don't tell me the settlers don't believe that. Nearly 100% of the settlers believe that. And that is a very dangerous cult and backed up by some of the most powerful people in the world, here, including here in America. Now we get to the double standards. Let's watch that.
It's the way these people speak to us, and I'm saying left and right. The way they speak to us when they call us evil, psychopathic.
When we're worried about innocent people getting killed, like that, at the heart of it is that we find it immoral, just like I did on October 7th. I find it immoral when civilians are targeted and killed. So I was not ever one of those people who cheered on what happened on October 7th. Right. Never. I never would. That goes against who I am as a human being. I value human life, and I don't think civilians should be targeted for any reason. Anytime they are, the person doing the targeting, the group doing the targeting is in the wrong, period.
That's it.
So when you now have upward of 75,000 people killed in Gaza, and you mention that to a Israel firster or a Zionist, and they respond to you immediately by saying, what about October 7th? What that communicates to me is you do have a problem with civilian lives being lost on a particular side. But civilian lives mean nothing to you. At first I thought when it comes to the Palestinians, but no. I feel like human life doesn't matter to them at all unless we're talking about a Jewish Zionist. Because if you're a Jewish person, like Dave Smith, for instance,
they'll kill you too. They could care less.
But you're
about
not
you.
a Zionist? They couldn't care less. You're right.
Yeah, and so guys, that double standard is obvious. Listen to what we're saying and listen to what mainstream media says. We say, no, hold Jews, Christians, and Muslims to the same standard. Do not hate Jews, do not hate Muslims, do not hate Christians, do not judge people based on their religion. We say that a million times. And mainstream media goes, no, that's unacceptable. You're canceled. You should hate Muslims, and you're not allowed to say anything about Jewish people. Fine, we're not saying anything about Jewish people. You're not allowed to say anything about Israelis. You're not allowed to say anything about their government. Why? What is this insane double standard? So who's the bigots? There's no question mainstream media is the bigots. They're the ones spreading hatred on purpose, and they're totally unapologetic about it. And whereas Candace Owens basically apologized for having done that in the past, she regrets it because she realized it was wrong. See, that's contrition, that's a real human being. And by the way, with tons of flaws. I'm not just saying like in passing that I disagree with her on other things. I mean, some of the things she says, I don't get it at all. Like the Bridget Macron thing to me is, I just don't get it. I have no interest in that. I don't think that's true. And again, anytime we talk about religion and where the Talmudic Jews or anything came from, I have no interest in that, and I don't want it, I don't care about it. I want to treat everyone the same. But the Israelis and American media and government says, no, no, Israel gets special privileges. They're allowed. So guys, it's indisputable. Last thing about this, and then I got two more clips that are so good. We say the 36 kids killed on October 7th is a tragedy and terrible, and everybody agrees. And we say, yeah, so the 23,000 kids killed in Palestine at a bare minimum is at least as much of a tragedy. And American media and government, and let alone the Israelis, go, no, no, we want to fund that. We want you to pay for that slaughterhouse of 23,000 kids. Don't tell me that you value them the same, you don't. If the American media valued those kids the same, I mean, they flipped out over the 36 kids killed, and they should. But 36 kids were killed over and over and over and over and over in Gaza. And did you see them flipping out? I didn't see it. They called Hamas the most disgusting terrorist of all time. Okay, then they turn around. Israel does what? Like 5,000 times worse, literally 5,000 times worse. And they're like, collateral damage, the Palestinians had it coming. They were hiding behind human shields. It's not that big a deal. We have to fund them. If you don't fund that slaughterhouse, you're an anti-Semite bigot. No, 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 you're the bigot. You're the disgusting racist bigot, cable news anchor, mainstream media so-called reporter. And then you have the temerity to judge Candace Owens or Anna or anyone else? No, I'm not interested in the judgment of mainstream media who have been disgusting bigots my whole life. And totally unapologetically bigoted and with an obvious double standard, let alone what we're about to see next. So let's watch this next clip.
there's something right now that feels very fragile. They're getting so increasingly desperate. Like
they are.
We're going after people's husbands. We're going after people's lawyers. We will try to just harass you, and it's obviously not working at all.
It's not working.
I'm like you. I just dig my feet in even more, and I'm like, let's suit up for battle. Let's do this thing. I'm not going to be broken by this. You guys have tried so much. But right now, I mean, the radical nature of Trump's tweets right now.
Oh my gosh.
They're unhinged. And at its core, it's just he's being instructed to attack people who don't support Israel.
It's crazy. It's absolutely insane.
What are we getting close to?
Yeah.
That's my question. What are we getting close to? If they don't feel like they're in control right now. They feel like an animal backed into a corner that's fighting and just lashing.
They are in control of the levers of power, right? And that's definitely scary. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't want to minimize that. But at the same time, they are no longer in control of the narrative. And Americans are waking up to just how much our government has been, I mean, for lack of a better word, infiltrated by people who are much more concerned with foreign policy that benefits Israel above and beyond, what's better for the American people. The thing that gives me a little bit of relief is knowing that people on the left and the right are waking up to it. Like that gives me hope. The fact that the individuals you're referring to who are backed into a corner don't have control of the narrative, that's why they're backed into the corner. And they don't know what to do. So they're lashing out and attacking family members, but it's only helping our cause when they do that. Because people see it and they're just like, ew, this is disgusting behavior. Why are you going after a PE teacher who never said anything about Israel at all?
Yeah, so two things. First of all, if you're offended by the fact that Anna said that there's people who are supporting Israel that have infiltrated our government, I give you Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz, and I would argue Cory Booker, and I would argue 94% of Congress who took money from the Israeli lobby. And oh, golly gee, Israel wins every vote in Congress. But reporters in America say that's just a coincidence. It's just a coincidence. So which leads me to, wait, who's the real cult? Right? Because we were told that MAGA was a cult and everyone who voted for Trump was in that cult and that they would never break. But wait a minute, you just saw Candace Owens, who definitively supported Donald Trump, tell you that Donald Trump's tweets are maniacal. She broke with him on Iran, on Israel, on the war, on Epstein files. So did Tucker, so did Megyn Kelly, so did so many others on the right. So there's still some. And now if you say like the remnants, the leftovers of MAGA are a cult, okay. I mean, if they didn't break after all, that Trump broke every single promise he had, that's fair, okay? But all the people who voted for Trump, apparently they were not a cult. On the other hand, you go to mainstream media. They won't change their mind about anything. They won't learn any lessons. They love to cancel people, excommunicate them. They love to smear and shame people just like a cult. They never reconsider their positions. They're massively biased in favor of one country and not anyone else. And they all think the same. They all talk the same. They all believe the same. Mainstream media is a sick cult. And every once in a while, when someone doesn't go along with their cult, for example, me at MSNBC, but many people at MSNBC back in the day, they get kicked out of the cult. And then they get shamed and smeared, because that's how cults work. Last one's about Epstein files.
It's like priming you to be accepting of something that just goes against your core principles.
And for Jewish Americans too, so you can understand why they reacted the way that they did right away.
Of course,
They're gonna get that 20 times worse. It's gonna be your stories about your grandma in your book. You go to temple, you go to, you go to synagogue, and you're gonna have those presets. And then it went too far. And a lot of them snapped out of it. And now I get Jewish people emailing me being like, I don't know what this is. I don't know why I'm being told I have to defend Jeffrey Epstein.
Can we just address how brazenly obvious, when every pro-Israel media figure comes out at the same time and basically says, oh, there's no big deal with the Epstein files, they shouldn't be released. You're giving it away. Like you're giving it away. Like you guys are too obvious. And what I'm wondering is, was the propaganda always this bad? Or is it that we're just a lot more awake now because there's diversified independent media? People are kind of breaking out of their bubble, so it's harder to lie to us. So their propaganda muscle has atrophied to some extent.
So well said.
I also totally agree with that. As Bane told Batman, victory has defeated you. Israel supporters have controlled mainstream media my whole life. Israel is the innocent victim as they keep taking more and more land, as they've brutally occupied Palestinians for 6 decades. And the entire time, our entire media lied to us and told us the Palestinians were the bad guys. They were the vicious terrorists. How dare they try to free themselves? They should be brutalized and they should never be freed. And Israel is their victim and they're only doing self-defense. But look at the disgusting liars in mainstream media that look at Gaza. We all have eyes. Gaza's utterly destroyed and they go, no, Israel's the victim. They were doing self-defense. Well, you're lying sons of bitches who are in a sick, disgusting cult that celebrates death and destruction and genocide. That's not Candace Owens. That's not the right wing. That's not the left wing. That's the establishment in this country. That's Israel supporters. That's all of cable news. And Anna's totally right. The minute the Epstein files came out, all those same people were like, not a big deal, not a big deal. Let's move on. Let's move on. Why? Norway didn't flip out. Bolivia didn't flip out. Tajikistan didn't flip out. All of Israel's supporters flipped out. Mark Levin, Laura Loomer, move on, no big deal about Epstein. So yeah, Epstein, Israel, no question about it. Read the drop site news articles. Every international deal Epstein did was on behalf of Israel. There's no question he was working on behalf of Israel. The only reason, if you don't know that, the reason you don't know it is because mainstream media is that cult that tries to brainwash you into agreeing with the guys doing the genocide, the guys who were connected to Epstein, who did those terrible crimes. But they don't want you to know any of that. Instead, they want you to blame innocent Muslims so Israel can have us pay for more of their wars. Yaz, I know it was a lot there, but let me get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, just real quick, I think what's so interesting about just the conversation surrounding the conversation between Candace and Anna is that overall, a lot of people actually seem supportive of these two sitting down and talking to one another, which I thought was really nice to see. Other people are, they have been a little less forgiving of Anna for talking to Candace, but honestly, I think that's just unrealistic. It's unrealistic to think that people like Anna and Candace cannot, do not, or even should not talk to each other in a way that is not antagonistic. It's just not real life, right? And after 10 years of such divisive politics and just like all of that really coming from the top, dividing us because it is politically expedient to do so, we need to kind of take our power back and be like, you know what? Like we need to be able to talk to our neighbors again, and we need to be able to not just say, are you on the left or the right, and then dismiss people or not, right? We have to be able to have these conversations. And we can't expect everyone to agree with everything we say all the time, but that is real life. That's your dinner table. Those are your coworkers, right? We're never going to overcome the dehumanization of each other if we can't just sit down and talk to each other. And I am not saying that we need to make excuses for actually terrible people, who want to see bad things happen to bad people because they're bigoted or ignorant or anything like that. I'm not saying, that we shouldn't question people's intentions or the things that they believe or the things that they support, especially when they have public platforms like both Candace and Anna do. But it's like what Anna actually said in one of the first clips that you played there, Cenk. As long as someone wants to have a conversation in good faith, then we need to be able to have those conversations. And Anna can do it on a podcast, but the rest of us, we need to do it in life, because there is no way we're gonna come out of these 10 years better than where we were before if we cannot do that. And I really just wanna see more of that happening.
Yeah, my last words here are, look, first of all, I'm not against anyone saying Candace has said outrageous things. I've said that Candace has said outrageous things, and I say it today. That's not a problem at all. Disagreeing with Candace Owens is not a problem. Disagreeing with us is not a problem. But if you say that, hey, I care a lot about marginalized communities, but she's defending the most marginalized or among the most marginalized communities, and she's defending them with great vigor, but I don't really care about that marginalized community. I only care about the other ones. So don't talk to her. Don't promote the good things that she's saying, the things against bigotry. No, end that conversation entirely and don't let anyone hear the positive things she's saying. Well, I don't agree. And so, look, most important thing, guys, is do not lend out your brain or your independent judgment to anyone else. Don't loan it out to Candace so that you agree with every single thing Candace says. Use your judgment. What makes sense and what doesn't? What is she right about and what is she wrong about? What is she really right about? What is she really wrong about? But all those things can happen because we're all human. Don't lend out your brain or independent judgment to Anna or me. And also don't lend it out to mainstream media. A lot of people in this country think the New York Times or CNN is their Bible. Well, if the New York Times said it, if CNN said it, it must be true. No, those organizations have tried to brainwash you for a long, long time. And if you just believe what they're saying is true and you don't double check, you're gonna be in for a world of hurt, and we have been for decades. And guys, it's not just about Israel. The big pharmaceutical companies robbed us blind. Every single lobby robbed us blind while mainstream media told you it was normal. And they never looked into the money, they never looked at what the powerful and the rich were doing to rig the rules. That is not normal. Do not lend out your independent judgment to anyone, including mainstream media in this country, that does not have good intent. Make up your own mind, listen to everyone, and then make your own decisions. All right, we are so past time, it is absurd. I have 3 more interviews for you guys. Yaz, you're awesome, we appreciate you. Have a wonderful weekend. But I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna do the revolution for you guys. A couple of important candidates you gotta know about, and then someone I want you to meet. We'll be back. All right, back on the revolution. We've got a lot for you guys. Well, let's go to our first guest. We're going to talk to Chris Espinoza here. He's a Democrat running in California 26. Chris, welcome to the show.
Cenk, how the heck are you?
I'm good, I'm good. So Chris, tell me about your race. Who's in it? What's happening?
Listen, there's like 9 competitors in this race, but there's really only one main opponent, and that is a used to be Republican, now Democrat, state assembly member who the establishment is trying to make a coronation out of instead of an election. But we have an incredible, committed, dedicated group of grassroots volunteers. And with the little resources we have, we've been able to reach over 150,000 voters at least once through some form of voter contact. So we're out there, we're doing it, we're trying to make an impact and fight for the needs of the community that we know are out there.
All right, I'm interested in the establishment candidate you're against. So tell me more about that person.
Sure, she's a state assembly member. Her name is Jackie Irwin. She has a Courage California score of F. And really what that represents is that she does not vote in the interests of her constituents when the politics are easily conducive to do so. And Courage California keeps ratings on everything from civil rights to voting rights to environmental policies. And essentially what that represents, Cenk, is that once she gets into office, should that happen, she will vote like John Fetterman votes. She will vote like Joe Lieberman voted during the Affordable Care Act. She will vote like Joe Manchin voted in stymieing our climate and clean energy ambitions. But we're not gonna let that happen. The community sees what's going on. They know that we are in a time where we need to fight to protect democracy, and we need members of Congress to be bold and courageous, not fearful and unwilling to do what is necessary on behalf of the people.
So do you know how much money she's raised?
I think the last filing she had over $600,000, but that does not count the secret lieutenant governor's 2030 campaign account that she has that has well over $2 million in it.
Interesting. Okay, the reason I asked is because establishment Democrats in DC love people with money. So if you have a lot of money or you can raise a lot of money, they're like, yes, money, right? So what I'm gathering from you, Chris, is that you're not spectacularly wealthy. And so that's, of course, a huge mark against you in the Democratic Party. Isn't it funny? The Democrats are supposed to be the party of the average guy. I don't know if people still think that, but it's supposed to be for decades what we are. And our leadership hates the average guy. And will work day and night to make sure you lose and the wealthy person wins. Anyway, so that doesn't separate your race from any other race, but that's just generally the case. So let me ask you a simple question. Do you take corporate PAC money or foreign government money, and does she?
Absolutely not. I refuse to take corporate PAC money. I refuse to take dirty energy money. I refuse to take money from billionaires. And that's exactly who's propping up her campaign. She has crypto doing independent expenditure ads on her behalf. She's taken money from big tech, from corporate real estate interests, heavily funded from law enforcement. It's important to me that this campaign represents the needs of the communities that live right here. And in order to accomplish that, we need to fund this campaign through grassroots community support. And that's what we've been doing. We've been taking individual contributions from around the country and from our own community. People can donate at espinosaforcongress.com with an S, not a Z. Every dollar helps at this point. We need to reach as many voters as we can in the closing days of the primary here. And if we can get the resources and if we can fully implement our voter contact program, then I'm confident that we can get to the general election and give the voters a choice between a progressive who's willing to fight for Medicare for all, for free public college and vocational trade school, for universal child care, or a corporate do-nothing Democrat who's going to vote in the interests of big tech and law enforcement and other interests outside of the community's interests.
No, I'm sure that if she takes crypto money, that she will be totally unbiased and won't necessarily vote with crypto, even though that would mean that she would get even more money the next time around. I'm sure she'll be unbiased. Why do we vote for any of these people? It's just giving your vote away to the rich and powerful. It's so dumb. And to be fair to the American people and to Democratic voters, it's not dumb. I withdraw that. They got brainwashed by mainstream media to support the wealthy and the powerful. And so they think that they're doing the right thing. Like, oh, Pelosi and Schumer are angels and they told me to support Irwin. And now they don't know because the media kept hidden from them. That's because she has millions of dollars and Chris doesn't. And Chris would represent the average person and she would represent the super rich donor class. And the media never told you that. So that's why people keep accidentally voting for people who I don't think are even Democrats. I think that.
You know, the interesting thing, Cenk, is when you run for office, especially Congress, and you start approaching the infrastructure of the Democratic Party, they don't ask you what your values are. They don't ask you what your policy positions are. They ask you how much money you have on hand and who you have access to with in terms of a donor base. And you know, I'm not running to be the chief DNC fundraiser here. I'm running to represent the interests of the community and fight for social justice the way I always have.
I know someone who ran and they met with Democratic officials in that state high up, and they only asked them one question. How much money do you have and how many people do you know with lots of money? That's it. I'm not kidding. They never asked him his policy positions at all. I know someone else that ran for office, talked to an important Democrat in their district, and they only had one question. Do you support Israel? Those are the only questions that are asked. This is insane. It's insane. Okay, so Chris, tell me why you got into this. What did you do before this, and why'd you decide to run for Congress against these steep odds?
I spent nearly 2 decades in Washington, D.C., developing an expertise on federal public policy. I had the privilege of working within the US Congress as a senior staff member of the House Committee on Natural Resources under the leadership of one of the most courageous progressive members of Congress I've ever met. His name was Raul Grijalva. He was the chairman of the committee. And he taught me that there are 2 types of members of Congress. There are the ones that you have to push really hard, and then maybe they'll write a strongly worded letter. Maybe they'll hold a press conference, but they won't do much more than that. And then there are members like Raul who see the job appropriately, first and foremost, as an advocate in defense of your constituents and your community. So that's why I got into this race, Cenk, is to model the kind of representation and leadership that I saw Chair Grijalva reflect. I saw him get arrested in front of the White House with his member of Congress pin on in defense of immigrants. I saw him participate in a sit-in on the House floor to advance voting rights. And that's the kind of leadership we need from Congress right now. We do not need cowardly members who are gonna capitulate to corporate interests and just go along to get along. We don't have time for that.
Yeah, so real quick, last story and last question. So there's only a couple of incumbents that signed up when we started Justice Democrats. Because we had 2 tough rules. One was you can't take any corporate PAC money, and those were for sitting members of Congress. And you've got to be okay with primarying your fellow Democrats. And those are third rails in DC. You can't do any of that. So I went and spoke with Raul Grijalva about that. And in the middle of the meeting, he pulled one of his staffers in. It wasn't you, Chris, but it was another staffer. And he said, hey, do we have any corporate PAC money? So this is a while back, right? Like we invented, pretty much invented no corporate PAC money at Justice Democrats, right? So, and his staffer said, yeah, there's one company that's given to something or other, right? And he's like, all right, tell them we don't want their money anymore. Yeah, I'll join. I was like, I love this brother.
I mean, that's the kind of leadership we need in Congress, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm like, you sure it's okay to primary other Democrats? Your colleagues will yell at you. He's like, yeah, no, they're not. They don't do anything that people want anyway. He's like, yeah, go ahead and primary him. So yeah, you learn from the right guy. So last thing, Chris, is so if you got into Congress, what's your top priority? What would you do?
I love it when I get this question because it forces me to prioritize. There are so many needs that I hear on the campaign trail from community members that are really struggling. Our top 3 priorities are protecting democracy, addressing the climate and crisis of environmental injustice, and lowering the cost of living. But if I could only pick one of those, it has to be providing economic relief to struggling families. There's a number of ways that we can do that. We have to prioritize lowering the cost of housing. We have to make sure that healthcare is a human right and that everyone has access to healthcare regardless of their bank account. We have to lower the oppressive level of student debt that people are having to endure as they start their futures. And so cost of living and making sure that people can thrive and economically succeed is priority number 1, 2, and 3 for me.
All right, Chris Espinoza running in California 26th. Elections Tuesday, so if you're anywhere near that, Ventura County, Calabasas, so many other parts of Southern LA here and Southern
Even
California.
if you're not there, Cenk, we have volunteers from around the country. So people can join us at EspinosaForCongress.com. We're having a phone bank tonight. Come on board.
All right, I love it. Gives you something to do right away, okay? EspinosaForCongress.com. Everybody help out. We'll have the link below. Chris, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks a bunch. Talk to you soon.
Yep. All right, are we taking another break? No, we're just getting Amar on? Okay, so the next person we're gonna talk to is also has a race in California, Amar Campa-Najjar. He's in 48th district. So he's half Palestinian, God help him, half Mexican, God help him. Okay, so has he gotten attacked on the campaign trail? Oh yeah, I betcha. Okay, so that's going to be an interesting conversation. And the elections in California and in a couple other states are on Tuesday. So make sure you know when your elections are. And in the governor's race, by the way, as we get Amar on, I'll just tell you one more thing. Oh, he's on? Okay, great. We're gonna go to Amar in a second. But Tom Steyer, go Tom Steyer. He's got an anti-corruption director he wants to appoint. He's gonna give a salary to that person. He's gonna do real anti-corruption. And the other guy in the race, Becerra, is the exact opposite. So Steyer is an easy one for governor in California. All right. Amar Campa-Najjar joins us. He's running in 48th district. Amar, welcome back, brother.
Thanks for having me, man. And I am fucking pissed off. So let's get after it.
Okay, there you go. We're getting after it right away. So as I was telling folks, you're half Palestinian, half Mexican. You're running California's 48th district. And have you gotten attacked at all, Amar, as you've been running?
You know the answer, man. Look. We've been leading in this race by a margin of 2-1 against all of our Democratic opponents, including our corporate Democrat opponent who's backed by the Israel lobby. Up until a month ago, now we're neck and neck and the election's Tuesday. $2 million has been spent by a group called Democratic Majority for Israel. This is a group that's been attacking a lot of progressives across the country. They spent more against me than every other opponent, Democrat progressive combined. And then there's a group that spent $900,000. So $5 million has been spent against us, and we're still in the lead. We've been knocking on doors, talking to voters. I'm not just saying this to make myself feel good. It is weird. With all this money being spent against us, we've heard nothing but positive at the doors, on the phones, texting people. You know, we texted 100,000 people just today, and it's all positive. It's almost disconcertingly positive. But they're attacking me because I'm the son of a Palestinian immigrant who grew up in Gaza. I'd be the first elected to ever be in federal office who's lived in Gaza, who's seen the atrocities. And when I hear genocidal statements like Ben-Gvir and Gantz and others, even Netanyahu invoking the Amalekites, calling for don't spare any man or woman, child or infant, those are genocidal statements. And so they know I'm going to hold Netanyahu and his cronies accountable, and I'm going to vote against funding this. And I think we're done giving unconditional aid. We're done giving $3 billion a year to Israel, and we need to stop bombing schools and hospitals there and start building them here. But they've been attacking me since the very beginning. And look, the system's broken, man. Like if me and Plattner and Abdul do not win this time because they prevail, I think our system is broken beyond repair. So we have to win because this is our best chance to stand up against the Israel lobby.
Yeah, Palestinians in Congress, of course, are the Israeli lobby's nightmare because they're unpurchasable. And so, and that's a huge problem because how do you purchase people? Well, you spend $2 million against their opponent, and then next thing you know, that the person who was the beneficiary of that $2 million is going to vote with Israel every single time. Even if it's against American interests, they're not going to hesitate to vote for Israel over America. And so sometimes when we say this, they say, wow, that's outrageous. Really? Wait, Amar, was the group called Democratic Majority for Southern California or Democratic Majority for Israel?
Right. I'm trying to build Democratic Majority for America here. Right? Because we're the United States of America, last I checked. And we have allies and partners when they align with us. But Israel has taken us into this another forever war that people don't want to be part of with no end state in mind. And it's deeply problematic. And this group, Democratic Majority for Israel, is not just attacking me, but propping up my Democratic opponent, who they've endorsed, Marnie von Wolpert. And Marnie and these lobbyists, these pro-Israel lobbyists, will not buy this election because our democracy is not for sale. We're going to make damn sure that doesn't happen. And people are outraged all across this district. I've talked to people who aren't even like progressives who are saying this is bullshit. And they've seen all the attacks, and I think it's gotten to the point of like oversaturation where people are like, this is overkill. Clearly doing the right thing, because why would they be attacking you if you were so bad? So we're clearly threatening the right people, but it's a problem. It's a huge problem, and it's deeply disconcerting. And I'm a pretty hopeful guy. You've known me for years. I don't think you've ever seen me this angry, but I'm angry because they're trying to buy this election from underneath these constituents and trying to sell lies and sell crap. And they're trying to suppress people's voice by confusing them. And it's deeply wrong. You saw what happened to Massey. $40 million. I don't even know if he was even strongly against Israel. I think he was just railing against the Epstein files, which is really curious. But this is a really just toxic, corrupt, development in our politics, is seeing this like unbridled investment from these pro-Israel lobbies trying to buy elections across our country. It's unacceptable. Everyone should be pissed off.
Yeah, it's kind of hilarious when they say like, what do you mean undue influence? We just spent $5 million in a tiny little district just to make sure we get a legislator that votes for Israel instead of America. There it is, that's not complicated. But I want to talk about the effects of it. So we always talk about the money, but we don't talk enough about what does the money buy. So what has that money bought? What is the effect of it in the race?
It's bought $5 million of mis and disinformation that's going on TV, that's going on mail. They've gotten like 20, 30 pieces of mail, inundated the voters, right? Saying all this stuff about me that's not true. And so that's what they're able to do, is confuse voters. Now, thankfully, the voters that I've talked to are, they're rising above it. They're seeing past it because it's overkill. Typically like negative attacks work in politics, sadly. But when you do it so far, when you spend so much money and you can't turn on the TV without seeing it, people start wondering, well, who's paying for all this? And when they find out it's the Israel lobby, which is deeply unpopular in politics today across the political spectrum, they take issue with it. And so, I think that the effect is that all buying these negative ads that people believe is true if they don't do their research. But I think it might backfire because they're overdoing it. And so, to get away from the politics of it all, I'm the first thing I want to do in Congress is go with Ro Khanna and get every member of Congress to sign a petition to overturn Citizens United, because our elections are not for sale. We cannot be bought this way. It's unacceptable. And if we do that, we could actually work on policies like stopping monopolies, whether it's the utility companies, the energy companies, big oil, big pharma, the medical industry, the military industrial complex from trying to buy elections, and not just buy elections, but monopolize goods and services like energy and groceries that bring up the cost of living, right? So if you want to deal with cost, it all comes from getting rid of money in politics.
Yeah, well, that's the God's honest truth. And when you get rid of money in politics, you get honest legislators who actually try to do things for the voters instead of the super powerful people who bribed them to the tune of $5 million so they could steal that seat.
Right.
And work for them instead. So look, we hear, and it's totally right. Hey, attacking anyone based on their background, religious or racial, is unacceptable. So attacking someone who's Jewish would be totally unacceptable. Christian, you name it, doesn't matter. Obviously unacceptable. So I'm sure that they've also applied that rule to you and have not brought up that you're Palestinian at all in this race, right?
Absolutely not. In fact, you know this, Cenk. Last week we had a shooting at the mosque I grew up in, the mosque I went to school in. And the next week, these attacks continued. There was nobody called, nobody reached out, nobody apologized. They continued on the warpath politically, and it's just disgusting. Like, take a moment of silence at least, and don't bombard the airwaves with this negative attacks on somebody who's from this community, who's grieving. And it's so deeply personal. It's not just political, Cenk. There's a deep-seated hatred for me. Like, my crime is simply existing, right? And saying I'm Palestinian and I'm proud of it, and I'm an American and I'm proud of it, and I lived in Gaza and I've seen the atrocities. I've seen this, and the siege that has been laid waste on Gaza for the past 3 years is unconscionable. If you're a human being with a bleeding heart, it's unconscionable. And what I keep telling people here locally is that the same boot on our neck as Arabs and Muslims is the same boot on the necks of the Jewish community. Right, the person who did that shooting, he wrote a manifesto that was as anti-Semitic as it was Islamophobic. We should be coming together. And you know what? There's a lot of Jewish Americans, I think a majority of them, who are with us on this issue of Israel. Right? They understand that we cannot be, treat them like a welfare state where we give them $4 billion a year to lay siege on innocent civilians. And they claim it's because of Hamas, but then you hear statements like, we're gonna lay siege on the whole entire place. No water, no electricity, no food. They're human animals. I mean, that's what they're saying. That's what Gallant said. And then you have Netanyahu invoking the Amalekites, right? Biblical genocide. I mean, we cannot continue to fund this kind of rhetoric and the actions that are aligned to it. So my hope is the ICJ will rule on this, make a determination, and then the courts could take action. But until then, even Netanyahu, for God's sakes, which is crazy. Netanyahu said we have to wean ourselves off of America's aid. So if you are to the right of Netanyahu still believing that Israel should have unconditional aid, then you're crazy. You shouldn't be in politics. You should not be in an American government. We need to finally, wean Israel off of our military aid. They have a $45 billion defense budget. They could do it on their own.
Yeah, no question. But to be fair, you were in a military organization, weren't you? Which military did you serve?
Yeah, I'm currently a United States naval officer in the reserves. I serve this country proudly, and I'm a reservist. But we serve and die all the same. The first 7 who were killed in Kuwait during the Iran War were Army reservists. And as a member of Congress, I want to make sure that before we send our men and women to war, that we better have a damn good justified reason for doing this. And I just don't see a justification for this, frankly, to get us back to a deal that we had before the war. While costs are going up here and we're losing lives, and we're giving, Netanyahu unbridled control. The only time we've ever had a foreign leader in the Situation Room, Cenk, in the history of our country was Netanyahu. What are we doing? What are we doing? Who's the global superpower here? Is it America or is it Israel? We should have partners, but not like this. And real partners have our back. They have our back, and it's a two-way street. And as somebody who's in the military, we have partners all across the world. I serve in the Pacific Fleet. We have the Philippines and Japan and other countries. Those are real allies, Australia, and they're helping us make sure that we, deter China from trying to go into a big provocation. I don't see that with Israel. It's dragging us into provocations. That's not what allies do.
So, Amar, you're against the Israeli lobby, but you love it when big pharma wins and we can't negotiate drug prices, and big oil gets $35 billion in oil subsidies, right? I mean, you're only unfairly picking on that one lobby, right?
No, they all swim in the same waters because they know that if you get transactional candidates, they'll be transactional with everything, right? So I'm against all of that. I'm for Medicare for all. I want to give us, universal child care. I want to make sure that we lower prescription drug costs, allow the government to negotiate prescription drugs. I want to make sure that, private equity firms are not buying up all the homes. Those are the things I believe, because I think that we need to take care of people. We need to grow the economy from the bottom up and the middle out. And, these insurance companies, the utility companies, all these big, conglomerates and monopolies, they have bought off politicians. And it's not just because it's a political spectacle that this person loses, this person wins. What ends up happening is that they do the bidding of the people who paid for their campaign to succeed. And then everyone's like, how come costs are up? How come, gas is up? How come groceries is up? How come I have to decide to get a gallon of gas or a gallon of milk? Because they're price gouging, because members of Congress and elected officials allow them to do it. And as long as we keep sending the same people who are bought and owned by these special interests, we're going to continue to squeeze the middle class. And we've seen the biggest concentration of power in human history in the past couple of years, economic and political. And the only way we unrig the system is to get people in there who are going to break the system and stop letting it break working class people.
Yeah, so look, Israel's lobby is particularly toxic, and they go to eliminate any of their opponents, Massey, Cori Bush, Jamal Bowman, Amar, and they go to eliminate them. They didn't necessarily, right? Fair. Andy Levin in Michigan, Abdullah Saeed now in Michigan. And it's interesting because they went after a Jewish and a Muslim candidate in Michigan, because it isn't about religion, it's about a foreign government. But every lobby, when they give money, expects a return on investment. And so we're not against just one lobby, we're against all those lobbies. So that's why it's so important to pick uncorrupted people. So last question is about the state of the race, Amar. So is it, now that used to be Darrell Issa's seat, but it got redistricted. So is there any chance a Republican can still win that seat?
Depends on who it is, right? I've been battle tested. I think we have the right background. We have a message that meets this moment. Latino, who's has family that lives on both sides of the border. ICE is a big issue in our district. Palestinian American, people don't want us to bomb schools and hospitals there. They want us to build them here. Someone who grew up working class, who actually has a populist message that will lower costs, raise wages, and take on corruption. But if we put up another vanilla candidate, we're going to lose. And my opponent, Marnie von Wilpert, is trying to buy this election. She spent $5 million from these pro-Israel lobbies, and the only reason I'm picking on them is because they're picking on me, right?
Yeah,
they started this, and they don't want someone who has those values. I would have never brought them up if they weren't playing in this race, not at least this way. In a general sense, yes, but they brought the fight to us, and we're going to respond. But my opponent has tried to buy elections like she is now. And as you know, she's tried to buy the silence of victims with this settlement that is coming up about her firing, her former chief of staff who was fired incorrectly. And then the city had to pay a settlement, taxpayer dollars had to pay for a settlement. If she gets through this, the Republicans are going to use that against her and she'll lose. So we need to make sure that we have somebody who's battle tested. When I've run before, I've outperformed Democrats. I've been attacked, nonstop this primary. And if I get through it, that means I'm a battle tested candidate. And I think we need to have resilient candidates. People like Graham Plattner, they've thrown everything at him, right? People like Abdul. The reason that we're good candidates is that we have a resilient campaign that's built on a message and on issues and not insults. And that's how we win elections and save this democracy and fight for working people again.
Yeah, leave the insults to me. I got one last one before you go. I mean, look, guys, everybody knows that's rational, that Democratic majority for Belgium would be weird. Why? Why should the representative from Southern California represent Belgium? That's so weird. Democratic majority for Peru? Why? Democratic majority for Russia? Why? That's insane. Why would you work for Russia or Belgium or anyone else when you're supposed to be working for American voters? But they want you to believe that Democratic majority for Israel spending $2 million to buy a seat in Southern California is normal. It's not normal. And the way you know who's clean and honest is the people that they're opposing. Okay, so that means you're not purchasable, and that speaks the world to your credibility, Amar. So Amar Campanajjar, California 48, elections on Tuesday. We'll put the link down below for his website. Thanks for joining us, Amar, and for being in the fight.
Thank you, brother. Let's keep fighting.
Yep. Fight for America. All right, guys, we're not done yet. Okay, now we're gonna switch over to the conversation. This conversation will be a little bit political as well. But it's someone I want you to meet. I think he's a really good guy, and I want you to know about him, and I want you to know what he's up to. So let's take a quick break, and we'll come right back with him. All right, joining me for the next conversation is Josh Gay, new host of the Ring of Fire. Josh, I say new, but it's not that new, right?
No, I've been doing this full time for the last several months, but I actually started back in 2017 working on Ring of Fire, so it's been a while.
Yeah, indeed. So for a lot of our audience knows Ring of Fire, but a lot of folks don't, and it sounds badass, Ring of Fire. So tell us what it is.
Well, we are not the Johnny Cash song, but we are a progressive outlet. We came from the lineage of Mike Papantonio back in the day when he was with Air America. We've been trying to tell stories and get them out there of corporate America and their malfeasance and what that has done to American politics. And then we've applied that to how our administration is going now. Our country is overrun with corporate dollars, corporate candidates, and we're trying to tell the stories that are getting buried by the mainstream media.
So Josh, you used to be a Republican, same with me. And so you've got an interesting backstory. So then it were flirted with, or actually were a kind of a libertarian for a while, right? So tell me about that transition and what made you change your mind.
So I was born and raised a Republican, and my family, military family, kind of old school conservatives. We practiced compassionate conservatism in our house, which meant, look, the lightest touch of a government you could have, and we wanted success for everybody. But what I started seeing is I was working on campaigns actually, and I saw how the Republican Party was shifting away from this personal freedom story more towards this Sarah Palin loudmouth, shut everybody else down and just do what makes us more money. That's what I saw the Republican Party doing. So for a while, I transitioned out of working for the Republican Party. I became a libertarian and I went for a few meetings. And frankly, I went to one meeting at a local restaurant and the second topic they brought up was the age of consent. And I never looked back after that. I said, look, we're done with that. I tried being an independent, but I realized to have the biggest impact, to have a voice in our country, you've got to be one of the two sides. Now, you can steer one of your sides. So that's really what I aim to do is I aim to be a common sense progressive on that side of the aisle.
Yeah, so Ring of Fire has been around for a long time as a progressive show, but really just fighting for the average guy and against corporate power, and so that's a huge part of it. So Josh, I had an experience that was similar to yours. I'm curious how similar they are. I, looking back at it, thought I was a little bit brainwashed by mainstream media into believing the Republican fables that corporations were patriotic and they were looking out for me, and Ronald Reagan was a cowboy, and America was a shining city on a hill, and we never did anything wrong. And later George W. Bush was a pilot and amazing. Now by that time I'd already left, okay, but I bought into the Reagan stuff. I bought into peace through strength, balanced budgets, and then as I lived life, I was like, wait, did they ever balance the budget? No, they've never balanced the budget in my entire life. And where's the peace? Because we haven't gotten there yet. So did you have a similar conversion story in that regard, and especially in regards to media?
Oh yeah, I mean, it started with looking at the Republican promise of lower taxes, lower government spending. I grew up where the Democrats were just called tax and spend, right? That was the nickname given to every Democrat out there, was they want to just tax and spend. But then I started looking, my paychecks didn't get any better under any Republican administration. My paychecks, the taxes were still there. It's just what the money went to. And I started looking at it as a return on investment. Instead of investing in military contractors, why aren't we trying to create a safety net for the most vulnerable of our citizens? Why are people going broke if they get cancer? And that was really kind of the awakening that I had, because I had already had socially liberal tendencies. So was the economy. And the lightest touch of government taxation that I had in my mind is, oh man, this is how it's supposed to work. Trickle down economics, the government's not supposed to be involved. I want to be free to make all of the money that I can. But then I realized the promises of the Republican dream were really the promises of Raytheon or the promises of Big Pharma. And that's all it was. They were getting my money instead of vulnerable populations in our country.
Yeah, I want to get to some current events in a second, but one more thing about Ring of Fire, the show that you host. So you guys do something really interesting there. You talk a lot about internal company documents that prove that they are the bad guys, and that doesn't get almost any coverage in the rest of the media. So tell me about that.
Well, so our lineage comes from Mike Papantonio, one of the best trial lawyers in the country, and I've spent the last 9 years. I still work actively on litigation against major corporations in this country. And in that litigation, one of the ways you tell the story is you don't need to make up evidence. You simply look at the defendant's documents, you look at their own emails, their own communication, and they tell you the story. They tell you that they put profits over people. They tell you that when it came to the opioid crisis, one pharmacy chain spent 45 minutes training on opioids, but 2.5 hours training their pharmacists on how to sell gift cards. And those are the documents that are impactful. And you don't see that in mainstream media. And so one of the things that I've committed to doing, and our team has done a great job, I'm a research nerd. When it comes to a story, I like to read and read and read. And what I like to do in my stories is I'll put all of the links of anything I found, whether it's an original document, a report from somebody else, somebody doing great work investigatively. I put all of that there because I'm not making this crap up. It is coming from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, no, it's powerful when you see the corporations saying, oh, we know this is gonna cause climate change, but let's lie about it. You're like, wow, they said that in internal documents. That's amazing, right?
I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just about to say, you listen to the oil companies. They've profited record profits in this war against Iran, and on their earnings calls, they're saying we're making all this money, and we're not going to commit any of that money to reducing the burden on people. No, our commitment as an oil company is to our shareholders. We want to pay out dividends. And then the money's not trickling down. These CEOs are doing multi-billion-dollar buybacks of their stock so that their golden parachute at the end of the journey can be even bigger.
Yeah, 100%. So I love the earnings calls because they always admit things. They brag about things that they would never admit on in media, right? So like during the inflation of COVID, a lot of the grocery store CEOs are bragging in the earnings calls. Oh yeah, we're driving up prices way more than inflation because it turns out the market can bear it. So we're going to just make as much as we possibly can from the consumers using COVID as an excuse. Like, oh my God, they said that, right?
No, yeah, and the prices never go back down.
Yeah, and then mainstream media is like, I don't see it, I don't hear it. Okay,
because they run ads on their networks. That's why.
Of course, right. That's why shows like Young Turks and Ring of Fire are so important. Get you the real news. All right, but you were talking about the war. Let's go to that. So look, we hear almost every day, we've got a peace deal. No, we don't. Trump has new demands, right? So what do you think is going on here? Are we going to get to peace, or are we going to go back into this disastrous war?
So first of all, I go back to why we started it for two reasons. One, the Epstein files. This was the great war of distraction, right? And that is still not tied a lot in the mainstream media that this was a Epstein distraction war. But then when you start looking at what we are doing in November, what Donald Trump has proposed doing in November, one of the reasons that they couldn't seize ballot machines the last time around was there wasn't foreign influence that they could prove. Well, what better way to prove foreign influence than be at war with a country that is known for hacking US infrastructure? Then you add in on top of that the fact that the Trump family is profiting billions of dollars off of this war. So what incentive, other than to improve in the polls, which he's getting crushed in, what incentive does Donald Trump have to actually end this war other than his partnership with Netanyahu? Other than that, what incentive is there to end this war?
So what's your sense of how much Israel has affected our decision to go to this war?
Oh my God, this is Israel's war that Trump goes, oh man, can I tag along? I mean, that's really what this is. I mean, the ceasefire, what's Israel doing during the ceasefire? They're attacking Lebanon. And of course, the mainstream media is going, oh, Hezbollah, they've attacked Israel. Well, no, they're defending themselves after Israel has blown through this ceasefire. Hey, the ceasefire didn't include us. I mean, and then now instead of this board of peace that was floated by Trump, now you have Netanyahu saying he's going to take over 70% of Gaza. This is all Netanyahu driving the ship, and Trump is just trying to figure out how he can grift even more on top of it.
Yeah, so among the Democrats, we're probably gonna have a nice brawl on our hands in 2028, right? So they're the folks who are, more traditional. Take Cory Booker as an example. Then you've got folks who are a little bit more populist, like Ro Khanna as an example. And then plenty of ranges in the middle. So what's your sense of how 2028 is gonna shape up?
Well, I'll tell you how I would like it to turn out. First of all, this is going to be a historic election because whatever comes after Trump has to be strong. It has to be the anti-Trump. It has to be just as big as Donald Trump. And in that regard, the executive branch is going to have a power that they've never had before. So it has to be somebody that I trust with that power. And do I trust someone like a Gavin Newsom, even though he's doing a great job with all of his attacks? He's saying all the right things in the media. Do I trust somebody like that to have unprecedented power and then to roll that back? And then you look at what the actual party is promoting. We saw that garbage autopsy that doesn't mention anything about how we alienated voters with the Israel-Palestine conflict. We didn't have anything in that. So I really start looking at, is our party going to shoot us in the foot? And then are we gonna have a candidate that we can trust to roll back what Donald Trump has done? And so I don't think that there's a candidate out there that has dipped their toe into the water aggressively that I'm in favor of at this point. You have a Gavin Newsom who, look, again, he's saying the right things in the media. You have a John Ossoff who, again, media darling, he's doing well down there. Do I trust him to do the right things? No, I don't. I don't trust them as far as I can throw them. So I really think that we need new leadership in the DNC, because the corporate dollars, they're not gonna get it done for us. They really aren't. They're not gonna move us in the right direction. We're just gonna end up with another weak Jeffrey's situation or a Chuck Schumer situation where they're just, we're gonna write a strongly worded letter and do nothing. It was nice to have a do nothing president in Joe Biden right after Donald Trump, but now it's time for somebody who has big ideas, big actions, and who can undo the damage that Donald Trump has done. We need somebody who can fix healthcare, who can roll back Citizens United, who can really make positive changes in this country.
So there's an interesting divide these days on the left between the folks who say, don't talk to Marjorie Taylor Greene or Tucker Carlson or Tom Massey, and they've not only had bad positions in the past, they still have some bad positions now for sure. But they have turned on a number of issues: war, Israel, Epstein files, and they've turned against Trump. So where do you come out on that divide? Talk to them, don't talk to them?
So I see it as kind of like how you'd have any family argument, right? Inside the Democratic Party, we've got to have a fight, like you mentioned, between the different wings of our party. But that fight, once it comes to November of 2028, we need as many people under the tent as we can. So in one regard, sure, Tom Massey, he is a Republican, he's still a Republican, but he helped us with the Epstein files, he's anti-war. And so we need to at least offer that olive branch, but he's not the answer. And I see too many people on the left turning to a Tom Massey, turning to Marjorie Taylor Greene and going, finally they saw the light. No, they didn't see the light. They just got screwed by Trump too many times, just like everybody else in this country did. But when it comes to getting the votes of an independent voter, the swing voters, those are gonna be important voices, because whatever comes after Trump, it's gonna be a JD Vance or a Marco Rubio, we cannot lose these independent voters to somebody who's got the same policies as a Donald Trump, just slicker and better on TV like a JD Vance.
I'm gonna ask you an impossible question, and then we'll end up with a couple of fun ones. So you can unilaterally take Donald Trump out of office in just a benign way. He retires, or 25th Amendment, it doesn't matter, but he's gone. But then we have JD Vance as president. So I'm not sure what I would do, honestly. What would you?
I've said this on our show a bunch. I love the idea of the 25th Amendment, I do. But do I really want to go into November of 2028 with somebody who's more polished, like a JD Vance, as our president, as the incumbent? I don't. I would much prefer to have the House and the Senate this November to hold Donald Trump accountable and virtually handcuff him until we take back the White House. And that's really what I would love to see. I don't want to see a JD Vance who's going to play well with middle America, who's going to play well with suburban moms. He's going to speak well, and he's going to do a much better job of seeming like the normal guy in all of the Trump chaos. But ultimately, does he still believe in Project 2025? Hell yeah, he does.
Yeah, so look, I don't know how well he'll play in middle America, but I do know that he's a slicker version of the same agenda. So if it's the same agenda and you're just gonna get someone slightly more competent to do it, yeah, it's definitely worrisome. Hopefully we'll see him in 28, because I think that, I'm not worried about him, let's put it that way. I'm worried about him if he's president. I'm not as worried about him as a candidate, but it might not be him, it might be others. All right, let's have some fun. So where'd you grow up, Josh?
Right here in Pensacola, Florida. I've tried to get out many times, but man, we have some beautiful beaches, and as many times as Ron DeSantis tries to chase people out of here, we have a beautiful corner of the world here, and I absolutely love being here in Pensacola.
So how did you try to get out? Did you go to college in other places and stuff?
I tried to go to Ohio State. That didn't work out too well. I bummed around being a scuba instructor for quite some time.
That's
college
fun.
Hippie. Yeah, scuba instructor, following the Dave Matthews Band around with my dog in the back of my SUV. I tried all of that, and you know what? There's no place like home.
Okay, that's fun. Why scuba?
You know, it's actually a really funny story. I grew up here on the water. I dove all my life, but back in the day, I got a acceptance letter to law school, and I looked at that, and you know, I was early 20s. I don't know what the hell I wanted to do with my life, so I panicked. I dropped out of school and started teaching scuba, and I thought that was the ticket to happiness. And when I did all of the work in the world and was scuba instructor extraordinaire and could barely pay my rent, and told me I needed to get a real job.
So you went from water to fire.
Exactly.
Okay, now my favorite question in the world. In high school, did you do any extracurricular activities?
I did all of the extracurricular activities. I still do. I mean, I'm working full time at 2 different places, all in the same building. In high school, I played all of the sports. I was in the mock trial team, but what people remember about me in high school, I played football, but I also was the captain of my cheerleading squad my senior year. So I did all of it. And that started as a joke because of my last name. People, oh, your last name's gay, why don't you go cheerlead? Sure. And it ended up being the toughest of the 4 sports I did and 5 sports that I did in high school. And I absolutely loved it. It was fun.
That's an awesome story. See, that's why I ask. I asked Audrey Denny, who's running California 1, vote for her on Tuesday if you're living California 1. And she won a carcass competition in high school. Don't worry, not human. She lives in a very rural area, and they had carcass competitions for cows, and she won it. So in your case, though, that's a great story. I've never heard of a guy who was a football player and a cheerleader at the same time. So I assume that you cheerled not exactly at the same time for a different sport.
Yeah, so I would do football in the fall, and then during basketball season I'd cheer. But I would also go straight from football practice to cheer practice because we were in competitions year round. So I was an offensive lineman, so I was a big dude too. And that was like my favorite thing. I looked like a flying hippo. Go from pancake blocking somebody to doing some backflips and stunning with the smallest girls in the school. So yeah, it was fun. I would football and then cheer, and then my senior year, I decided to give up football, did swimming instead, and then cheered still.
Okay, my God, your life is a wonderful story of contradictions. So from football to cheerleading, and then the offensive lineman becomes a swimmer. Okay, and then you go from water to fire. My life is ADHD. You can ask the crew here. They describe me as a tornado. I live my life as a tornado, and I wouldn't have it any other way. It's fun as anything. I've got a 11-year-old daughter who is just like me, and I pray for the world when she's turned loose on it. But God, it's fun. All right, Josh, the tornado gay, host of Ring of Fire. Love it. Great to meet you, brother. Everybody, check out Ring of Fire. Check out Josh's show. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Cenk.
All right. Okay, guys, I'm gonna finally let you go. Okay, much love. Have a great weekend. On Monday, I'm gonna do the show with Anna. She's gonna be here in LA. I'm gonna be in London. Should be a fun show, so check it out on Monday. Bye-bye.